Good evening and welcome to another episode of Across the Pond. I'm going to bring you something special this evening, not the traditional episode that we usually do. As you will be aware, I've been away for the last few months, the last probably 4 or 5 months, I've not done an episode. The last one was with Drew. And the reason for that is since the last episode, we've been doing a lot of dot connecting and trying to piece things together for the big picture. And after sort of seeing the big picture, it sort of seemed a bit pointless doing some of the content that I usually do. So after everything and putting this big picture together and researching and looking and seeing who's on the page, it seems only fitting that we do this episode and deliver it with the severity that it deserves. So the guest that we've got joining us is a very special one. But firstly, I'll introduce my co-host for the evening. He's going to be Matty from UFOs Around the World. Matty, say hello.
Hello, across the pond. Glad to be here.
A man of many words. He'll get going. I'm sure he's got a boot. You've got a drink there with you, mate. He usually has a drink accompanying him, a stiff one. Not this evening, that.
I'm going to go and get that now, actually, while you're talking.
Don't take too long, mate. If I'm freewheeling it, this intro's not going to be the best, I can assure you. And for the main bulk of the interview, I've lined something very special up. We've got none other than the modern day Indiana Jones. We've got a forensic geologist who's not just into rocks, he's into unearthing the secrets and the mysteries of our history as a race, as a species. And when I say that some of this big picture that I've been looking at recently, it makes it very evident that what we've been told has essentially been a lie our entire lives, and there's been a deceitful plan in place to deceive us all. And it's been successful up until now. And the man who has been piecing together our history for the best part of 40 years, who's been out in the field as well as in his own laboratory, doing the work inside and boots on the ground stuff, is Scott Wolter. So, Scott, what an amazing honor it is for me to have you on. I don't know how we've managed to get you in the first place. It's a miracle, especially given what you've been recently working on, which we're going to get to at the end of the episode. But thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And there's no magic going on here, man. It's like you said, boots on the ground is the only way to make it happen. And we got a good story to tell today.
Oh yeah, well, we may as well start at the beginning. And I'll start because I'm a relatable guy, I think, to the British audience. I'm a normal bloke from up north, same with Matty. So we'll start at the beginning for us. Now, when we went to school and we've been given pieces of history as we move along through the curriculums, and we learn about this and we learn about that, they go with a certain narrative. And it would appear that that narrative is wrong, and that's something that you've been looking at for, like I said, the best part of 40 years. But what was it that got you interested? Was it just pure curiosity? How did you fall into this field?
Well, I fall into it is a pretty accurate description. I'm a forensic geologist, for those that don't know, and I run a materials forensic laboratory in St. Paul, Minnesota, where basically we do autopsies on concrete and rock. And everything that comes into the lab is because, something went wrong. Either the concrete cracked, had low strength, or there was a catastrophic failure. Something went wrong. And what they want us to do is to try to examine samples, do our autopsies, if you will, on samples from the problematic situation, and determine first and foremost what caused the problem. And then the second thing is who's going to pay, right? Who's responsible? And so with that, we get involved in a lot of legal work. So I'm often called to testify as an expert witness. And as a licensed professional, I need to be prepared to testify in a court of law under oath to my findings. And that's a pretty high bar. So that's the world that I live in. I am semi-retired now, but I was in the office yesterday, and I do a lot of traveling. But when I'm around and I can get into the lab, I get in there. I still like to work with the young people, coach them up a little bit on things that I've seen, and I still have a lot of customers that call and want us to do work, and then of course I have to write the report and do the follow up. So. But I'm doing just the right amount. I like to stay involved in the industry because I love the work that we do. So that's really what I do. But to answer your question, my life took a big turn in July of 2000 when I was approached by a representative of a museum in Minnesota who wanted to talk to me about examining the Kensington runestone. And for those of you that don't know what it is, it's an artifact that was found in Minnesota in 1898. A Swedish immigrant farmer was clearing trees in preparation for farming. And when he tipped over this 25 to 30-year-old aspen tree, tightly wrapped in the roots was this 202-pound stone that pulled out of the ground that they noticed had a long inscription carved in Scandinavian runes. And basically, the scholars have been debating its authenticity ever since it was pulled out of the ground. And I can tell you now that the scholars completely screwed it up. And a lot of it had to do with a simple, basic thing that they were unable to do. And that was to admit that they simply did not know what much of the inscription was on this stone. Now, after more than 125 or whatever, 28 years now, it's been since the stone was found. We have now found everything, but that wasn't known for over a century. So basically they screwed it up. That's what I'll tell you. And like I said, instead of admitting they didn't know what was there, they said, oh, it's a hoax to try to make it go away. And this has happened many, many times because, well, let me go back. So the stone comes into the lab. We do our analysis. And really what they wanted me to try to do was to age date the weathering of the inscription. Is there a way that we can date how old the inscription is? And keep in mind, the runestone is dated. It's self-dated using pentatic numbers in Arabic placement, 1362. Now, this is the middle of the 14th century. This is 130 years before Columbus. You know, that guy that supposedly discovered a continent a country that he never set, foot on the land we now call the United States of America. And of course, this is one of those bullshit narratives that is simply not true. And so, well, Chris discovered America. So how could there have been Europeans in North America in the 14th century? And that was one of the arguments that people used, right? Well, we now know that that's complete nonsense. So, but the other thing that I have learned after all these years is there are larger forces at work here. They do not want this history to come out, especially the history behind the runestone. And I don't know how far you want to get into that, but I'll just cut to the chase and tell you. Well, first of all, let me go back and set the table, really, the foundation for what led to all of this. They wanted me to age date the inscription, and I really didn't know exactly what to do initially, but I did come up with a method I thought might work. And basically what I did was I compared the weathering of tombstones of like mineralogy, the same mineral grain size, from the same weathering environment. The climate had to be the same as Minnesota, right? And what's important is the runestone has not been in a weathering environment since Olaf pulled it out of the ground in 1898. And so what I did was I had to go to the East Coast to find tombstones that were old enough to get me some numbers. Now, if I went over to across the pond to where you guys live, 200-300-year-old buildings are nothing, right? Well, in our country, those are old. And so I went to a cemetery in Maine where I, with permission, I took samples off of Revolutionary War era tombstones. And I compared the weathering of those with the weathering of the runestone. And I concluded that the weathering of the runestone was older than 200 years because the minerals started to come off the tombstones at about 200 years. On the runestone, they're long gone. So it's older than that. But that's from 1898 when it was first pulled out of the ground. And when you go back 200 years in Minnesota, there was nobody there except maybe some monks wandering around or, Christian missionaries. So really, nobody could have done it. So I concluded that it was authentic. And I was pretty proud of that work. It was all peer reviewed. And when I published it, I thought, well, that was cool. They got one, good for them. And I was ready to move on. Well, that's when the backlash came. And it was
Yeah.
swift, it was hard, and it was harsh. And at first I was confused and I said, wait a minute. I said, I'm not perfect. If I made a mistake, point it out, I'll fix it. Well, I didn't make a mistake. They just didn't like the result. Well, at that point, I said, well, guess what? Tough hop. You don't like it? That's your problem. I'm running with it. But they continued, and it got nasty, and it got personal. And, I don't want to sound like I'm some tough guy, but I went to school on a football scholarship, and I was a linebacker up at UMD. And you want to go? Let's fricking go. And so obviously I can't frame them up and put them on the ground. So I had to outsmart him. So the rock told me it was authentic. I trust rocks. I don't trust some people. Rocks don't give a shit. Rocks just are. So I knew it was real. Therefore, everything in that inscription, the language, the runes, the dialect, the grammar, the dating, everything must be consistent with the 14th century because the rock said so. And so at that point, I decided, screw them, I'm going to go figure this out myself. So I took 5 trips to Sweden because it was old Swedish, right? I figured the monk that carved it must have been educated in Sweden. And I ended up going to an island in the middle of the Baltic Sea called Gotland. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah, yeah.
That's basically where all the people in the Baltic region go for their summer vacations, right? It's beautiful. And it's a big island. And what I did was I went to all 92 churches on that island, 92 medieval churches. And I went to all of them because I'm anal retentive. Because in my mind, the biggest piece of evidence I'm going to find is in the one damn church that I don't go to, right? And so what I was looking for were grave slabs, medieval grave slabs, most of which had been pulled out of the ground and mortared into the floors of these churches to preserve them. And that's where I found all the language, runes, dialect, grammar features were on the island of Gotland. Now, to be fair to the scholars who, had not found those, I'm not some brilliant guy that knew where to go and they didn't. The reason was because the last place that the Scandinavian scholars published the runic inscriptions of Sweden, and they've got thousands of runestones there that they've already published, going back to the Viking era, right? All the way through medieval times. But the last place that they published those inscriptions was the island of Gotland. And in fact, while I was there, some of those papers were being published because they were published in the early 2000s, exactly when I was there. So the point is this: I was the first person to look at those inscriptions in context with the runestone and found everything. So the rock was right. It told me it had to be there, and it was. And I knew it was there somewhere. I just had to find it. Now, the next thing that happened was that when I was in these churches, I was seeing these interesting crosses. I don't know if you see that one right there.
Yeah, interesting colors as well. The Templar, right?
Yeah. Well, that's my banner in the Templar cross. I am a Templar in 3 different orders, and but I wasn't at the time. And anyway, I saw these crosses, so I started doing research into the origin of these churches, and they turned out to be Cistercian. And I didn't know what a damn Cistercian was at the time, but I can read, so I did. And the Cistercians were the white monks that wore black mantles. You remember the red and white colors you saw there? Dualism, the concept of opposites that keep things in balance, which says a lot about their true ideology, which we can get into later. But in any case, I found out that all 92 churches were built by the Cistercians, and it was the Cistercians that also had a military monastic order that was part of them called the Knights Templar. So a lot of people have attacked me and criticized me and said, oh, isn't that convenient the Knights Templar. Whenever anybody wants to solve a problem, they always go to the Templars. No, Jack Wagon. The reason I went to the Templars is because the evidence trail went straight to them and nobody else. So that's how we got to the Templars. And of course, that opened up a whole nother bunch of cans of interesting history. And we can get into that. But we now know that after the put down in 1307, the Templars didn't just disappear. They ended up coming over to North America multiple times. And the bulk of the action that happened that ultimately led to the founding of this country took place in the UK, specifically in Scotland. So we can get into that if you want. But obviously, you guys are probably well aware of the Templars' history in the British Isles, and it's extensive. And it was up there that ultimately those treasures that were spirited away from France ended up in Scotland. They were protected there for almost a century. And then starting in the late 14th century or the mid 14th century, they began to bring them over here. Well, isn't that interesting? The date on the Kensington runestone is 1362, right exactly in this time period. So it's a fascinating historical story. There's many tentacles to it. I don't know which one you want to go down, but that's how I got here.
Thanks for that, Scott. I don't know if your Wi-Fi keeps dropping. I just thought I'd mention that now. I don't know if are you far from the router or something. It just keeps dropping and your camera keeps freezing a little bit.
Oh, it is.
All
Okay.
right. Yeah, I
You
was
guys
wondering that.
froze up just a couple times, but it's working great now for me.
Yeah, it's fine now. There's something that you mentioned today when I watched it in the Wi-Fi. Is you dated it to 1362 using the medieval Easter table and the specific ruins.
Yep.
Can you explain the double dating system?
Okay. Well, the double, you mean on the runestone?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. And it's brilliant. So just let me back up a sec. So, when I did the analysis, the weathering study, and I concluded it was authentic, one other thing that I thought was really important, because I started, to read about the history of the investigations and where people, made mistakes, scholars made mistakes. I knew that somebody had to document carefully in detail everything that's in that inscription. So I generated a microscopic photo library of everything, every man-made character in the inscription. And I did this under magnification, under the microscope, using high angle and low angle reflected light to pull out the three-dimensionality. If you're looking at, say, a tombstone at night, if you take your lantern and you shine it across at a low angle, it'll pop, right? If you shine it straight on, you can't read it, but from the side, you can see everything, even if it's weathered. But anyway, that's what I did. So I took 650 photos in total of all of the runes, the numbers, the word separators, everything. And as I was doing that, I was finding interesting things like punch marks that were added to the lines or short little strokes that frankly didn't belong there. And every time I did that, I would put them in a separate folder called odd runes. Okay. So we had a whole bunch of those things that I noticed in the inscription that were clearly man-made. And if they were man-made, they put them there for a reason. Okay. They're not mistakes. So the runestone is dated 1362 at the very end of the inscription using pentatic numbers in Arabic placement. In other words, 1, 3, 6, 2. Together, 1362. And what's interesting, in the early part of the 14th century, this is where I learned about the medieval Easter table. And basically what they would do is take the runic alphabet at that time, which they called the Futhark. The reason for that is because the first letter is F, U, Thorn, O-R-K, and so on. And what you would do, and there were 19 runes in the alphabet at that time. And the first 7 are what they call the Sunday letters. The remaining 12 are what they call the golden years. This is how you make a date. And there was a table that was published in 1314 called Ole Worm's Medieval Easter Table. And to make a date, you need a Sunday letter, one of the first 7 runes in the alphabet, a golden year, one of the remaining 12, and a column number. Those are the 3 things that you need to make a date, right? Now, just so you guys know, I saw this double dating, or this Easter table dating and double dating, on the grave slabs in those churches, on bells in those churches. And sometimes they would put the date over the entrance to the church. So this thing, I saw a bunch of examples in Gotland, right? So this tradition is there. But on the runestone, the very first thing in the inscription is the number 8. And to make an 8, you just make a vertical line. At the top, you make a half loop and then 3 marks. So this is 5, 6, 7, 8. The second horizontal bar had a dot at the end of it. And you can see it. It's punched right in there. So I put that one in the folder. But I pulled it out because it's the only number that has a modification to it. And if we use the number 8 and the L in line 4 in the word that the scholars had a problem with, scalar, which I think is actually Sinclair, but that's a whole nother story. But there's a little bar in the middle of that L that doesn't belong there. So if you pull out the L, that works great as a golden year because it's a 12th letter in the alphabet. The very last thing in the inscription on the face side, there's also the split side that has 3 more lines. There's 9 on the face side. There's a U ruin that has a little cross at the bottom, and that doesn't belong there either. If you pull those 3 things out and you plot them on the Easter table, you get a date. And that U, by the way, works perfect as a Sunday letter because it's the second letter in the alphabet, right? F-U, Thorn, R-K. And if you plot those 3 things on the Easter table, guess what date you get? 1362. 1362. What? We've already got the date and pentatic numbers in Arabic placement. But guess what? What if somebody took a chisel and added another bar to the 3 in 1362? You've just added 100 years, right? Can't do that because we protected the date by using an Easter table dating code that's consistent with the time and the tradition. And why would they do that? Because the runestone is a land claim. It was a Templar land claim. So in addition to bringing the treasures over to North America and hiding them for centuries to eventually be used to found that New Jerusalem, that free Templar state is what they called it in the Sinclair Weems journals. Brother Francis Bacon called it the New Atlantis, a place where people could live free from the tyranny of the monarchs of Europe, free from the persecution of the Roman Catholic Church. Who suffered from them? The Knights Templar did. They were put down by those 2 entities that combined together and elevated their power above the people. And so this story makes perfect sense, and it's been suppressed. It's been known the whole time, but it's been suppressed. And that land claim was placed in the center of the continent along the north-south continental divide. And that's not an accident either, because at that time, both the French and the Dutch had a land claim practice where if you placed a land claim stone in the ground and a tin plaque in the tree for redundancy, but the tree is not permanent, the stone in the ground is, you could lay claim to the entire river system and all the land associated with it, which is about half the continent. If you look at that land claim in Kensington, Minnesota, that's along the north-south continental divide, the Mississippi, Missouri watershed all the way to the Gulf, and then the Red River, Hudson Bay watershed to the north into Hudson Bay. So, I mean, I don't know why we're the first people to talk about this. I mean, nobody has ever gone anywhere near this because it was a fake, right? It's not a goddamn fake. It's arguably one of the most important historical artifacts in the world. and they treat it like shit. And that's going to end, and it's ending right now.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well, you know,
I'm drinking
just
coffee. I'm getting fun up. Sorry.
is it, you've had, obviously there's a lot to unpack there, but talking, just honing in, or just narrowing in on the Templar. I mean, we've mentioned your recent interview on the basement with AJ. Previous to that, a grandmaster, or grand, I think is it the
Tim Hogan.
grandmaster?
Tim Hogan.
Yeah, Tim Hogan. He was on the basement, and he was talking about the Templar and its sort of its role throughout history and in retrieving said artifacts and stuff.
Yep.
And you're part of that as well. But the suppression side of things, Tim said on that episode that the Templar, not only did they have the hidden knowledge that they've obviously been retrieving all these years, but they also had technology as well, hidden technology
Yep.
in their possession. And he said he obviously didn't let on where it was, but he said of it, he knew of its existence and he knew where it was. But the question I've got essentially is why, if they've got that, do they suppress it?
Why did the Templars have that?
Yeah, I mean, if Tim's admitted on that episode that they've got this hidden knowledge and this technology, and it seems to be a force for good, then like, why won't they reveal what it is and how come, if they've got the power to essentially change mankind?
Yeah, well, the reveal is happening right now, and Tim and I both agree that the green jar and the scroll is really the first part of the reveals that are going to happen. I know where the other artifacts are as well, the secret vaults. We know of at least 2 of them, I should say. There's probably more out there that I don't know the location, but I do know the location of 2, as does Tim. And those are going to be revealed in due time. But
Is one of them Egypt by any chance?
no, I'm talking about the
No.
ones here in North America, in the United States.
Right, okay.
They're both in the United States. One is in Washington, D.C., and one is in Montana. We've talked about it before. Montana's a big state. So, but anyway, there's, and actually the runestone has clues to its location within the inscription as well. And that's one of the things that the scholars have no idea and understand, is that the Kensington runestone is filled with symbolism, allegory, and code. And if you don't know the keys, you're not going to be able to decipher it. And we have been able to decipher all of it. And I will say that there is information on the runestone that would lead you to one of these vaults.
So there's a question I want to ask about this. So the hooked X appears 22 times, you said, plus 10 unknown VW runes. What do the unique symbols suggest about who carved this?
Well, the hooked X is a symbol that was created by the Templars. It's basically a stonemason's version of the Hebrew Aleph symbol, which is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, which in Hebrew mysticism stands for God. It stands for an interconnectedness, for a shared purpose. It's the perfect symbol. I mean, if you break it down symbolically, it also represents that concept of opposites, male, female, heaven and earth, good, bad, light, dark, yin, yang, that keeps things in balance. It's like that black and white dualism of the Cistercians and the Templars and their white tunics with their black mantles. And the hook represents the continuation, the perpetuation, the generation, if you will, of that ideology and thought. So it's the perfect symbol. And we've since found it in many places that, funny, just so happen to be associated with the Templars. So there's no question as to who is involved here, what tradition is involved, and their symbolism. Once you understand it, once you've been initiated into it, as I have, and Tim has done some of those initiations, we've been working very closely together about trying to educate people. And, getting back to the green jar and the revelations we're going to talk about that are in the documents we found in the green jar, Tim and I agree that, and it's his call because he's the Grand Master. It's not my call. But what we talked about is really before the artifacts like the arcs can be revealed and the other artifacts, the world needs to be prepared spiritually. And I think the green jar is really, it came to us. We decided we're going to reveal it. We found it less than a year ago. We found it last August. But we had to decode it first and foremost, and then we had to talk about how we wanted to reveal this, because this isn't kidding around. This is important stuff, and this is a I don't have to tell you guys or anybody that listens to this podcast. The world is spinning backwards. I mean,
Can I ask something?
are truly messed up. And, I'm talking to a couple of Brits here, and I feel like I have to apologize to you guys for the way that our government is acting right now. This is not who we are as Americans. I know you guys know that. This is the biggest crock of
bullshit. It's the
bullshit.
same over here.
I'm so sick of it. I feel like every time I travel, I want to apologize to everybody for our idiot president and the people that he has working. But know this: there is one universal axiom in life. All things end, and this shit will end too. So hang in there with us, okay? Because we will fix this problem eventually.
We're going to circle back round to this at the end, because obviously a lot of this stuff is, like I say, pertaining to the modern day and how things are moving towards a crescendo. But just going back to what he was talking about with Tim and this reveal, me and Matty, we came to this subject, and after a lot of connecting, a lot of dot connecting, you look at the science and you look at the spirituality, and you see that they go together. The consciousness element of all of this, as well as the religious elements to a degree. But as we've already discussed, some of that's been manipulated and twisted as a weapon of control rather than what the code message is, which is coming back to this source. And a lot of these secrets and these suppressed knowledges that as the Templar, as well as other organizations, maybe a bit more sinister, are suppressing from the public. And it's, we'll spin back around to it. But the point I was going to say is, you mentioned something about a spiritual awakening needs to happen before this other reveal. And me and Matty, we've come to this via the UFO subject specifically, which opened the door to the rest. But Chris Bledsoe, he's a big name in the UFO folklore.
I know Chris. He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he is a nice guy. And, I've spoke to him offline. I've spoke to him quite a lot offline. Just in general conversation, I've been fortunate enough to be introduced to him. So we have spoken, and I've bounced some ideas off him. And I genuinely think he's a nice guy and a good guy as well, with a message. That spiritual reveal that he's talking about, he's mentioning something about a flash of Christ consciousness in the way that he words it. Is going to happen, this new knowledge coming to mankind. Does that tie into what you're talking about, or does what you're talking about, is it part of a master plan to reveal that side of things afterwards? Or is there something that that we don't specifically?
Well, I don't want to come across as like, I've got all the secrets and I know everything. I don't. But and it's interesting that you brought up Chris, because I'm going to be seeing him at a conference here in a little over a month. Wait, I guess it's almost 2 months. But anyway, no, it's 1 month. Yeah. But anyway, we have some things to talk about. It was interesting. I first met him a year ago at the Contact Modalities XPO conference in Wisconsin, and he came running up to me, and because he had listened to a podcast where I talked about my own lady experience, and we got on just great, and we talked about a lot of things. And now that we have discovered the scroll and all this stuff has happened, he and I are going to have another conversation. We did communicate a little bit online here about a week ago, and we're going to sit down and get after it, because I think, he's legit. What happened to him, and what is happening to him, and the communication that he has been getting is spot on. And I know, like I feel, and like Tim and Janet and a lot of other people that are in a position where, people are listening to what we have to say. We take that responsibility very seriously. We recognize that we are at a very difficult point in time for humanity. And it's not an accident that for the last 10 years or so, people have been talking about extraterrestrials. People have been talking about this spiritual awakening. And Now all of a sudden the Epstein files come out. And we find out that there are some really dark forces at work here that have been controlling the narrative, that have been running the world. And that shit's got to be put down hard now.
Do you think, Scott, do you think that's
how we do it?
hiding all the real stuff here? The stuff that you would prefer to do then?
I'm sorry, say that
do you wanna
again.
say that again, Matt?
Yeah, so you said the dark forces that are holding everything together in the background and stuff like that. Do you think that's what's hiding the true knowledge that you potentially have uncovered? Do you think they're the ones that are gatekeeping this as well? Yeah.
And I could tell you a lot of stories. I'll just tell you two quick things. One is, we basically been sanitized off the internet. A lot of our research. I use the example, if you Google Kensington Runestone, you won't see my name, you won't see my research, you won't see any of my books, but it's a fact that right now, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm just saying because it's a fact, I've published 6 books that all are in part delve into research we've done on the Kensington Runestone, but there's nobody walking on the planet that knows more about this artifact than me. It's just a fact. But yet we've been sanitized from the internet. If you Google it, it's a fake, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that's an accident. Now, there are also people online that I think have been hired, frankly, to undermine our credibility, to attack us. And I'm not going to go in and give them the honor of even naming them, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So that's going on. And then about 7 years ago, I was approached by somebody with the government who wanted to talk to me about disclosure. And long story short,
sorry, just to interrupt you. When you say disclosure, does that mean disclosures in the alien subject?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And anyway, after he convinced me that he was who he said he was, we worked together for about 3.5 years. And then it got to the point where we had a falling out. It literally almost came to blows because he was trying to manipulate me and fill me with misinformation and disinformation. And it pissed me off. So basically I said, screw you, we're done. And we haven't talked for 2-3 years now.
And have you never named this person?
Well, he went by the name Holden, but that wasn't his real name. And I knew that, but it didn't really matter. At the time, he was appealing to my patriotic side and my side that wants to be forthright and get the truth out there, regardless of what people think. So
is this a guy who's been in the UFO subject since, as in the public domain, speaking at congressional hearings, etc.?
There were a number of people that I know that wanted to speak with him, and he resisted that. He did not want to, go public. He didn't want to be out there. He wanted me to help convey the message, and I did that for a while because I believed in what the message was. But when it started to go down this twisted road, that was it for me, and I was done. But
so you've just mentioned that. I mean, you just said to me pretty much all I need to know on the UFO disclosure movement with regards to its official narrative is you got propositioned by a member of the official narrative, essentially, and told to stick to the script, and you said no and walked away from the disclosure movement because you knew that it was the wrong narrative. That's essentially what you're saying, right?
Well, it wasn't so much the narrative about disclosure, although, how do I know for sure everything that we were talking about, the information that he shared with me, the videos that I watched, some of the people that were there educating me have been called into question since. And, just because somebody's called into question, this is the difficulty with misinformation and disinformation. What the hell is truth, right? And that's what they do is they get you questioning everything. And so unless I can verify something myself, I got to be really careful about what I say. And I got to the point where I just didn't trust him anymore. So I'm out, and I bailed. So
Good on you.
Can I ask, and we're just talking about, I'm just going to say one more thing about Chris Bledsoe and then we'll move. I mean, we'll stick with where we're going,
No,
but I
whatever you
think it's
want, man.
pertinent.
I'm good.
Yeah, it's pertinent to mention it just while we're here anyway. One thing we know, one thing that we're learning quite rapidly is that a lot of these conspiracy theories that people have spoken about over the years are coming true. I think there's only 2 left out of
Yep.
all of them, and everything else has pretty much come full circle. But
Yeah.
one thing we know from the JFK files and other ones is that the CIA, 3-letter agency, are very, very sticky customers, and they're heavily dealt into a lot of these things. The one thing that concerns me slightly is some of the wording that's been used recently, and I'll specifically mention Trump declaring himself anointed by God, and then doing the God's work and everything else about what's happening in the Middle East. But hang on a second, Scott. I've got to just say this, right? Because it comes back to Chris. Is that we know that the CIA were involved in those conspiracies. We know that they've done dirty things and they continue to do dirty things. Yet they keep the company of Chris. And that concerns me because Chris is a nice man and he's a good guy and his message is true. I know that to be true. But I know that the company that are hovering around him are also, they've got a track record of doing bad things. So that concerns me slightly. And then especially with Trump making that declaration, it sounds to me like there's some kind of narrative coming for some chaotic worldwide Armageddon type scenario that's going to have this false prophet in the shape of a Mr. Donald. But the problem is they're hijacking the whole thing with this Christian movement. It's all about Jesus and Jesus and Jesus, which is, it's fine. But something that I've accepted, and I think I spoke to you about this the other day, Scott, is that any religion for me that has got a fear-based narrative is created by whatever this dark entity is that these people are worshipping at the Epstein files. These dark people, they're worshipping some kind of dark entity. And for me, any fear-based religion, it completely goes against what this message of God is, and that there is eternal life, and that we're here, and the divine beings, and there is no heaven and hell. Basically, we go on, and that seems to be the big secret that they're keeping from us. But these religions and all of these religions seem to be under that one fucking dark entity. I don't mean to use colourful language, but it's quite serious.
I love the colorful language. Keep it coming.
So, taking all that into account, we know that the way that you control the masses is by fear. So the fear narratives in these religions don't make sense. It contradicts what the message of God actually is, what it says. And this is coming to the scroll and all the rest of it, and what the actual the meaning of God and consciousness, source, or etc. is. But it worries me that you've got 3-letter agencies that have got a track record of getting involved and fucking things up and genuinely just doing malicious things and controlling and psyops and programming the public, etc., indoctrination, Stargate. You can add it up. The list goes on forever. And they're hanging around with Chris and this message of Christ, 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 and then the Trump thing. So what do you make of that? I mean, is there something to be concerned about here, Scott?
Well, I think there is something to be concerned about. But, this is coming kind of out of left field, but I think what I have seen recently is that there is we have a pineal gland, right? Our third eye. And apparently there has been an effort for a long time, going back to the early 1950s, by using chemicals within our food and our medication to cloak this third eye. And I think that has really been, frankly, at the core of how they've been able to control us, to keep us veiled, and from opening that third eye up to be able to release, for lack of a better term, the powers within us that we have that would be able to keep us from being manipulated the way that we are by these 3-letter agencies and these powerful entities, families, whatever you want to call them. But I think what's happening now is we're on the verge of opening that third eye up in everybody. Because one of the things that is pervasive throughout these messages, and not just in the scroll, but in other encrypted messages that we have, and I haven't published yet, but I'm going to very soon. The overriding message that we get is this: the power of God is within you. And I think once people understand, it's not just, a mental recognition that you have that. And I've lectured about this in the past, and it really happened to me when I discovered this code, what the Kensington inscription really was all about. And what I discovered is that, people, I think everybody at some point, I don't care who you are, at some point in your life, you ask those big questions in life, right? What happens after I die? Is there a heaven? Is there a God? All that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, people take this spiritual journey in many different ways. Some go through organized religions, some through, their own private studies. But at the end of the day, however you go on this journey, at the end of the day, what happens is it all comes back to you. And I think that this power of God is within you is really true. But I think, people focus on their heart, this chakra right here, when this is the one that needs to be opened. They all need to be opened. And then I think once that happens, that awakening, that turn, if you will, from this dark path that we're going on will be shifted, and we'll start going in a different direction. And I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to find out. I'm working on that right now. What I think that's really important, because that is the overriding message in these documents. And when we go through them right from the get-go, that's the first thing that came out of the jar. And I'll explain that a little bit. But getting back to Chris, I think what you were saying without saying it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost sounded to me like you were questioning Chris as maybe being one of those 3-letter agents that's out there. I don't know. He could be. Think so? Guy that I've met.
Can I just jump in quickly? Can I just say something quickly about Chris? I don't think he's. I think he's got a personality that could be manipulated. I think he could be bullied into saying things. He hasn't got the personality that you've got, Scott, where you'd want to punch him and tell him to F off. I don't think Chris is that guy. So I think if a guy was going after you and going after Chris and working to try and feed his bullshit, you're going to tell him to fuck off. Chris is probably going to tag along and play along with it and stuff like that because he's too scared to tell him.
Oh, he's a nice guy.
He's more gullible. Yeah, he's a nice guy and probably a bit more gullible. That's what I think. That's
just to add on to that. Opinion. To add on to what Matty's just said there, Scott, is I completely agree with Matty. I think the people around him are very powerful people and they've done nasty things, and I know that they can manipulate people. And Chris is a really nice guy and a good guy. So I think that could potentially be something that I'm concerned about. But I will say this as well. I know somebody who is from the Native American, the American Indian background, Native Americans. And he, he's a sun dancer. He's involved heavily with their community. He knows all about the history and the past as far as their spirituality is concerned. But he talks a lot about Egypt and Osiris and things under the Sphinx and things and various other things. And something that comes, that links to G.E. Kincaid, stuff that he found maybe in the Grand Canyon back in 1909 or was it 1908, or round about that date. And stuff that's in the Grand Canyon linking to Egypt and their past and history and Atlantis, etc., etc. Well, he talks about that a lot. And Chris messaged him and said, you can, if you stop talking about what you're talking about, basically, and start talking about Jesus, I'll help bolster your audience. That's a strange thing for me to. I seen the message. I thought that was quite peculiar.
Chris messaged him, and can you say that again? He said
so
what?
Chris says if you start essentially spread the word of Jesus and stop talking about what you're talking about with pipes and Egypt, etc., and spirituality, and as far as the Native Americans are concerned, I'll help bolster your audience. Now I find that peculiar thing to say.
Bolster his audience? It almost sounds like he's trying to broker a deal.
That's what I'm saying. But, Drew's not exactly a big a big player, so to speak. I mean, he aired this publicly the other day, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with, but he put it out anyway. And he just mentioned, and he showed the screenshot, and Chris basically says, I'll help bolster your audience if you start talking about Jesus. Now that, again, I'm not suggesting anything, and I'm not saying anything. I just know that the company that he keeps with these 3-letter agencies add the narrative of Trump and et cetera, and then it just kind of smells fishy to me, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, Matty, am I seeing something that's not there, or does that seem
Well,
fishy?
this is new to me.
No.
I didn't know what you're saying. But what I was going to say there is, you said before you realised that someone was potentially spreading something to you that you thought was bullshit. Have you heard anything that Chris has said where you thought, that sounds similar to what I was being told, but I dismissed it and thought it was bullshit? Is there anything Chris has said which you think he's someone that I knew that I fobbed off is potentially in his ear now?
Okay. Well, let me just go back, and I want to address something you guys both said, that Chris has a type of personality that certainly is different than mine. He's a more quiet, gentle guy, and he may be more susceptible to being influenced. I don't know him well enough to really understand, the deeper parts of his personality. So, but I certainly understand what you're saying. I can see that, and it might very well be true. I got to be honest with you. My hackles go up have always gone up when people want to talk about Jesus. But it's always sort of been in a, more of a conservative religious standpoint, and I just don't have any time for that. But now I look at Jesus a lot differently since the discovery of the scroll and who it turns out that he might really be. So, but
I think
just
the big picture is, Scott, it's like the big picture about Jesus is that Jesus obviously existed and was incredibly important, but we've had a distorted truth of who he was actually. But
right,
carry on
exactly.
point.
Yeah.
I think you could probably agree with that.
No, I think that's a really good point. And, I'll be honest with you, the first time I was around Chris and we had a conversation, he came across to me as sort of a born again type. And those people concern me, let's put it that way. But I also, I want to give Chris the benefit of the doubt that maybe the way he worded it came across that way, but that's not really what he intended. And so that's part of the conversation that I want to have with him, is try to understand where he's coming from a little better, because I know he wants to talk to me about the scroll. And so I'm going to
I'll be interested to see
Yeah.
what that interaction with you about that scroll is going to be. I'm
Yeah.
very interested to see what he wants to talk to you about that scroll, actually, especially off the back of that comment. Because like you just said there, for the people who are deeply, deeply rooted within these fear-based narrated religions, if there's an element of fear there, that can lead to this manipulation. Because if you're a God-fearing man, you'll do the right thing. Now, who are you going to listen to who's telling you what the right thing is? Apart from a very powerful 3-letter agency and somebody who's apparently anointed by God. So I'm going to be watching this scenario unfold very carefully, I think, in the future, and in the very near future as well, because we're going to get to, I think we're on a very short time period of when things are going to start hotting up quick from where we are now. So I'll be looking at this very carefully to see where this narrative is going, because I've got an idea in my mind about where this is going. And I've spoke to people publicly about it, not publicly, but offline, about what I think is coming over the hill. So I'm interested to get to where we're going to go to in this interview and see what your thoughts are on that. Matt, you got anything else before we...
You can't just throw that out there. You can't just throw that out there and just leave us hanging, man. Come on.
You want me to tell you what I think's going on?
Yeah, I want to hear what you think. Come on, let's hear it.
All right. Big picture, I think what's going on is, we know now that politics is a joke and it's nothing to do with what the people want. We know that it's a theatre, essentially. The left and right of politics, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, in the Western world, those are your two shows. You can either vote for the left or vote for the right, both of which, like I said, is a theatre for these uppers, these elite circles, these people that suppress this information, which is where we're at now, and where we have been for hundreds, thousands of years possibly, of this suppression. I think what we saw in COVID was a mass lockdown of people, and I don't think the system that was already on its way out was ready for millions, well, billions of people going down rabbit holes and learning about stuff when they had nothing to do but sit indoors and go on the internet. And since then, I think the horse has bolted and they can't put it back. Is the freight train has ran away and people have known too much, learned too much, and things have unraveled big time for these dark entities, these dark forces running the show. So what I think is a speeding up, or what we're seeing is a speeding up of disclosures, because if they don't control the narratives in any way possible, they're going to come out of this very badly, very, very badly. Probably, jail sentences and worse, because of
I don't
depths
think
of the
they can
lies.
save it. They can't save it. I think the
No, they
toothpaste
can't.
out
Done.
the tube, and you can't put it back.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm sensing. But the situation I see coming over the hill is, how do you come out of this? If you're the people running the show, right, and you've got control of all of the world's resources and economies, how do you come out of this in the best way possible, smelling of roses? Is you do the best you can to scare the shit out of people to prepare for whatever's coming next. And this is a digitalization. You see it on the left and right of politics. Everybody wants AI. Everybody wants digital future. This is why you see all these AI tech oligarchs cozying up to all the leaders of the world, investing in this and investing in this country and that country. It's because they know they're taking us towards this AI thing. And this dark entity, who all of these people in the files worship, is moving us towards an AI amalgamation with humanity. Because whatever it is about us, human beings, they fucking hate. And they don't want us here. And they just don't value us. And that you're going to move us into this AI computerization, basically going to remove humanity by combining us with technology, which can be controlled from a mass cloud, a hive mindset type shit. But that's where they're going to move us. And this narrative that we see unfolding now, how do you get everybody on the same page? Everybody in the world needs a blue beam, right? And you see it playing out in the Middle East, Israel and Iran, and nuclear weapons being threatened and whatever else. And if you look at blue beam, you know what it is. It's essentially a false alien invasion. And who's been anointed by God? So what happens? You see things in the sky. It goes around the world. Everybody sees what's going on. Oh, my God. And there's chaos on the streets, bearing in mind, because you need power out and, resources, fuel's going up, energy crisis. You see it all coming over the horizon, this chaos that they're going to put on the streets. And they're going to make the situation so desperate for the world that they need a solution. And that solution is going to be this false prophet, which looks to me like they're shaping up as Trump. And when that happens, he's going to be the man to fix everything. So the world's population got to get in line behind this new world order regime shit, which is going to be all digital. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to start wheeling out technology that they've had hidden behind the doors for so many years, it makes sense that they make maximum amount of money off it. And if that technology allows for us to be able to travel off world at the various other places in the universe, they're going to need a chip and pin machine, which comes from this quantum tunneling technology that they've got, right? So you can purchase anything you want, wherever you want in the universe, and it comes back to the central digital bank of the world. So you can see where I think that's where they're taking us towards this digital AI future construct, or where they want to take us, but it's not going to happen. As we've mentioned, the toothpaste is out the tube. And I think this thorn in the side, which has been the Epstein files, which is growing and growing and growing and growing, is just too much. And there's no way for them to move now. There's disclosures imminent, and there's too many people in the general public like us talking about the truth. And we're not going to take this shit anymore, because frankly, what they've been doing behind the scenes is fucking sick. It's sickening, and not enough people are talking about it. They're talking about Iran and all of these other fucking narratives that have been force-fed down our throats by the mainstream, and they're not focusing on the stuff that matters. And that's what we're talking about.
Well,
so that's my big picture thing.
I think it's solid. I think you got a solid thesis going here. AI is at a point now where who knows what's going to happen with it. But again, there could be misinformation, disinformation that we're being fed about AI, and it's really hard to know where the truth is. But I think you're right. I think we're at a point now where you probably heard that audio of Trump when he got pissed off and said, screw, F Marjorie Taylor Greene. do not release the Epstein files. Start a fucking war. I don't care. But if I go down, everybody goes down. Well, that's exactly what happened. And that was only said a few months ago. And sure enough, here we are. We've got this goddamn war that we're dealing with to try to distract from the Epstein files. But that's not going to work either. And it's only a matter of time. I'll tell you what's going to probably happen here as we go into, well, there's a couple of things that I've heard. One is that enough Republicans are going to grow a spine and they will, impeach Trump basically with the 25th Amendment and the regime and get him the hell out of here. I would prefer to see that happen, but and not wait for the midterms, because he's going to try to do something to screw up the midterms so that we can't vote. Because I guarantee you, the special elections that we've had recently, almost every Democrat has won, including a representative in the Mar-a-Lago district where Trump lives. The person that represents his district is now a Democrat. So I think unless he declares martial law or he sends ICE agents to the polling places, they're screwed. We're going to vote them out, and then we're going to arrest him, and we're going to try them all and jail them all. He'll be the first one. So I think there's a big reckoning that's coming. However,
yeah, I think so.
That's going to happen unless something else happens before that has nothing to do with Trump, that is mentioned in the scroll. So,
well, this is what brings us round, Matty. I'm going to lead you in here. You've been looking at the UFO subject for as long as anybody I know, and the narrative of 2026 and 2027 has been around as long. Well, I don't know. You can tell me how long it's been about, but it's been there for as long as I've been involved in this subject.
I was there researching when the year 2000 rumor was around. I was there when 2012 rumor was around, and we're seeing it again now, 2026. We're seeing it again in 2027. I'm going to keep it short and sweet on what I think is going to happen. There is some seriously advanced technology that some of these countries have got. Looks like the United States, possibly China, maybe Russia, we don't know. For that technology to be released on this planet has to be at peace. We haven't got 50, 60 years anymore to try and bring peace. It's going to be forced, and I think we're starting to see that, and I think that's why all hell's going to break loose. They're going to force the peace. They're going to bring people to their knees, and that could sort of bring out a blue beam. Never been a massive fan of it. It started on Star Trek, that when the blue beam thing, but I think it's going to be forced. They're going to have to, not everybody's on the same page. And I think the AI stuff and the robotic stuff could be, after a huge event where many lives may be lost, robots will come in handy to do the jobs of men that aren't here anymore. So I think that is where we're probably heading. I'm just going to keep it short and sweet there on that. I think when you look at it like that, when you look at the robots, they're coming out this year, I think, the Teslas.
Yeah.
And we're seeing
and
the
look
war
at Bill
now.
Gates. Look at what Bill Gates said in the fucking files.
I just think we're not in, you just got to look at the world. We are not ready for alien technology. We're ready for, there's aliens, but we're not ready for the alien technology. So
I agree.
If you're going to come out and say aliens exist, the questions are going to be: are they good? Are they bad? How long they've been here? What are they doing in the background? And the media's going to run with it. It's different podcasts, all the truth coming out on what's actually going on with these things, and what they're doing with the children and stuff like that. The trafficked children that are going, there's all sorts you can go into. They don't want to open that. They don't want to push that first domino yet. Once that first domino goes, the next domino, the next domino, the next domino.
Yeah.
They're trying to hold on to that domino. And once that domino goes, there's going to be a knock-on effect. And I think they're holding on for dear life on that. And that's just my opinion on it.
Well, the average person doesn't know, though. But Scott, this brings us quite nicely down to the numbers that you found in the jar, the 626, because on that day, that's the very same day that Steven Spielberg, who we know is read into some of these programs and who we know is involved with this disclosure narrative that's been forced, on that very day, Disclosure Day, his movie is out. But that ties in, curiously, to what you have been recently speaking about. So I don't think there's any better time to get into it. Go on, Scott. Give us the grand reveal. What is also happening on that day, or what is suspected?
Well, look, if I knew what was going to happen, I'd tell you, but I honestly don't know.
What
I
does the
mean, my
scroll
gut
say?
tells me
Or what was
it
the
has
scroll? Tell us all about it.
it has to do with disclosure. That's my gut, but I don't know. It just seems to me, it's what's cool about that number. And for those of you that don't know, the number
Sorry,
13 is a
Scott. Can you
very
tell us? Can you tell us how you came to this scroll? Like, where did this information come from?
Oh,
Why did you end up going to
okay.
this
So you
location?
want to back
And
up and you want to hear the story about how we found it. Okay.
yeah, like
For the
you could
casual
tell us
viewer,
that you. Yeah.
listening, buckle up because this is going to get fucking wild real quick.
Yeah, it's going to get wild, brother, man. Hang on. Let me just grab my stuff so I have it here.
I don't
So
suppose before we get into the meat of this, is there any? I mean, can you see his internet again now, Matty? Is he still really laggy? And because
It's
if he's
still
going to
quite
show
laggy, but
something,
when I edit, when he sends a video over as well, I will edit it and I'll clip certain things, overlay things. So I will maybe take it from the WAV files, the overlay of the actual image and stuff, so
that's a
people
good
can
idea.
see it as well. So
Yeah,
we'll do
thank
that.
you, AJ. Thank you, AJ, from the Wi-Fi. We're probably going to steal his stuff. Scott,
Yeah,
your
I
internet's
don't think he
terrible.
minds, does he? But we might give him 2 more followers.
you know what?
Yeah.
AJ is a wonderful guy. I can't say enough good things about him. We really had a wonderful time, and I suspect that we might do another podcast with him. We really got on well, and we got a lot more to talk about. So, but anyway, whatever you guys are going to do, you do it. So, all right. So I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Don because I could talk about Don for a long time. But I first met him in 2006 when I was introduced to him by Zena Halpern at a conference, the New England Antiquities Research Association, near a conference, and he asked me if I would look at a stone that that they had found in the Catskill Mountains that was inscribed, and I looked at it, and then I got to know him a little more, and then he asked me if I would be willing to go up on Hunter Mountain with him and look for carvings and some other things, and we did that. And we found another inscribed stone that was amazing. I don't have time to go into that, but in 2017, I happened to be driving through New York and I decided to stop and see him. And we ended up signing an agreement to work together after he got screwed over by Zena Halpern, who he had signed an agreement with to write a book. And she decided she didn't need Don anymore. And so she went to the Curse of Oak Island guys and then she died. And I'm not saying she deserved it or anything. I love Zena. I knew her for a long time. She was very passionate. She was very loving, but she was also very stubborn. And sometimes that worked against her. That can work for you and it can work against you. Any case, in 2017, I said, well, Don, why don't you and I work together? And so we signed an agreement. We've been working together ever since. Well, the bottom line is that his best friend and a bunch of other guys worked for an agency that did work for our government. They were hired by military generals. They were given certain things to do that were very dangerous in many cases. Some of their personnel were killed on the job, and they took out some people, some bad people. I know a lot about the work that they did. Don doesn't want me to talk about it, so I'm not going to until after. Well, hopefully I'll outlive him. He's 83. He's got me by quite a few years, but all I can tell you is they did some wonderful work that helped keep us all safe. Anyway, his best friend, Bill Jackson, who also worked for the agency, purchased a document in 1971 that we now know was the last update of all the Templar records, Templar maps, correspondence, encrypted messages, artifacts, you name it. He purchased this document, a copy that belonged to a very prominent family in Italy, and he purchased that document. In 1990, and then he investigated everything that he could that had to do with this document, which I don't have time to go into. In 1994, he realized he was dying of arterial sclerosis and Parkinson's disease, so he sold the document to the Vatican. Now, before you get upset, like I did,
how much did he sell it to the Vatican for? Do you know that?
Yes.
Can you release that?
$365,000 at that time. Now,
that's cheap.
Well, hold on. When I first heard that, of course, I wanted to cry, but as it turned out, Bill was a lot smarter than we were giving him credit for at the time. It turns out that in 2013, Don got some undeveloped 35 millimeter film from one of the colleagues in the agency that Bill had given this material to, and he got it to Don. We developed those pictures, and it was photographs of everything that he had sold to the Vatican. So we have it. But what we didn't know, and we didn't find out until 2017 and subsequent to that, is that Bill also, before his death, he died in 2000, so he lived for 6 more years after that. He had disseminated the most important parts of the document. Hey, Jan, that's reflecting up here, and I can see it. She's looking at some of the documents right now that we have that we've gotten from Don over the years, and it's reflecting. Anyway, what we found out is that Bill Jackson had disseminated the most important documents and artifacts to his brothers in the agency with strict instructions upon their deaths that this material would go to Don Rue. Now, one of the questions that we asked is, why Don? Why you, Don? Well, Bill answered that question in a letter that we got with one of the packages we got when John Drake died. He said, Don was my best friend. He was the only one that took my research seriously, and he's the youngest of the Spartan personnel, and he will probably outlive us all. And that's exactly what's happened. Don is the last man standing. The last guy to pass away before him was a guy by the name of James McMasters, who died last May. And while I was speaking at the Cosmic Summit, literally while I was giving my main floor lecture, Don called me because I had a message on my phone when I got done with my lecture. And he said, McMasters died, and I'm going to be meeting with the executor of his estate. Well, he did that a few weeks later, and then a week after that, we went out and we got that material. What he got were two documents, these documents right here. Now, these are, I don't have the originals here. They're downstairs in the vault, but these are color copies, and there's the back sides. But the first piece right here is Theban script. Theban was used by the Templars to encrypt documents, and it was developed back in the 13th century. Now, basically, there's 2 messages right here. And what I don't want to go into a big, long dissertation, but one of the things that we know, remember when I told you that Don wanted us to go up onto the mountain in the Catskills, and we found that inscribed stone? The place that we went is called the Temple of the Goddess. At the temple, there were biblical era documents that were hidden there, that were in Europe, that were brought over here sometime before the 10th century, and hidden at the Temple of the Goddess. That was basically, the leadership was all women. And in the 12th century, 6-ship flotilla of 144 men and women left from Britain, went to Denmark, and then eventually over to North America with the mission of recovering those scrolls and bringing them back to Europe. The mission went from 1177 to 1180. and they were able to successfully recover half of the scrolls. And they brought them back. A deposition was taken. A copy went to the church, and a copy went to the Templar tradition. The Grand Master was present when the deposition was taken by the lead Templar Knight who led this expedition. His name was Sir Ralph de Sudley. He got half of the scrolls in the 12th century. The other half of the scrolls were still at the temple. One of the letters that we have in the documents that Bill left for Don was a letter that talks about the rest of the scrolls and what must be done with them, because in the letter he talks about settlement is happening in North America. This letter was written in 1656. At the end of the letter, he lists all of the documents that they still have. One of them that's mentioned, there isn't a biblical scholar that I can find that's ever heard of these documents before. They're called the Yeshua Scrolls. 8 Yeshua Scrolls. Now, the letter also talks about they're going to take these documents, get them out of the temple, and take them up to Montreal. Montreal was settled by the tradition, the Templar tradition, the Sulpicians. But that's another story. On the way to Montreal, the scrolls, the 8 Yeshua scrolls, were hidden in the Adirondack Mountains area. They didn't take them to Montreal. They were worried about those scrolls. We have subsequent documentation where the last guy to do that update that Bill bought, he did in 1908. He basically says, K, the angel K, says, take the Yeshua scrolls, pick one, burn the rest. I do so. I'll go with the Sulpicians. So there were 8 Yeshua scrolls. Now there's one left.
Who's Angel K?
I was just going to say, who the hell is the Angel K? I'm just going to cut to the chase and tell you in the document. He is mentioned multiple times. He's a frickin' alien. He was the one who demanded that this same guy, CLY, who did the update, who was sent by the Angel K to go recover the Book of the Wars of the Lord document and give it to the angel, who took it back. And he said it is no longer amongst the world of men, which begs the question, why did they want it back? And that was done in 1898 because that message is dated. There are 2 things in there.
Just in case I missed something, do you think Angel K is someone that's evil then, not a good person?
No, he's not evil. He's not evil. Nope. The reason that they took the scrolls back, or the Book of the Wars, the Lord scrolls, there were 2 things in there that the world was not ready for. One is aliens, because they're absolutely mentioned in that scroll, and we have that. I have not published it yet, but I'm going to. That's a whole nother thing we haven't talked about. The other thing that is in that document is a dual-gendered God religion. That is exactly what the hooked X symbol represents. Was the world ready for those 2 things in 1898? Hell no. But now that document has come to us, and we're going to make that public. We're going to make the scroll public. And that begs the question, is the world ready now for aliens and a dual-gendered God religion? Well, buckle up, bitches. Ready or not, here it comes.
It's happening.
I'm ready.
I'm not fucking around anymore. So that's the backdrop.
Come on now. Keep going.
All right. I'm just getting you caught up. Where's my beer? What the hell? You're drinking. I should be drinking.
Have you got your beer, have you, mate? Oh, he's on the whiskey this evening.
Baby.
I've got the tea. See, I'm on the tea, on the branded tea.
I love it. I want my Jameson, man. All right. So now we get to this. There's one more scroll out there, right? And this map tells us where it was buried. It was actually originally buried on an island, probably in 1897, because 1897 is in the message. But in 1933, we got this message. Due to increasing storms, the order thinks the scroll is not safe now. We rebury it on the mainland. 1933. Now, I've been to this place. I know exactly what they're talking about. I've been on the islands, and obviously we found the scroll, so I went where they buried it. I know where everything is. But when I read increasing storms, Sherlock here thought they were talking about weather. And I thought to myself, geez, it would take a lot of rain to get water to drown that island where the scroll was that they had to move. Well, no, it's a metaphor. In 1933, what they're referring to is events leading up to World War II and the activities of the Nazis in Europe. They were concerned about the Nazis getting a hold of the scroll. Now, as you guys know full well, the Nazis didn't just round up Jews. They rounded up Freemasons. And going back to what you mentioned, Lee, in the very beginning, about Tim talking about ancient technology and ancient information, going back to the Atlanteans. When the Templars captured Jerusalem, they didn't do it for the frickin' church. That's the narrative that they wanted people to believe. But what they did was they established a base of operation in the region so they could go into Lebanon, into Turkey, into Egypt, and round up the stuff that they knew was there because the ancestors had left that information for them, which included going into the Talpiot Tomb and taking the remains of their ancestors. Are you familiar with the Talpiot Tomb?
No, I've done a lot of research on the Nazis and the UFO side of things. This is going to sound controversial, but I think there's something that's been hidden about why World War II started. And I noticed you mentioned in the Y-Files about 1933.
Oh, it's all connected.
A famous UFO crash, 1933, Magenta, Italy, which was apparently taken by Hitler and Mussolini, and then Pope Pius got involved. And
really?
And then and that was in June. Pope Pius apparently told the United States and the UK, and they went in.
Hang on a second. Sorry, Matty, just repeat that again. Just listen to this, Scott, about what the Pope said.
Again, because that could be connected here. Go ahead.
So in 1933, I only know about this because of David Grush, which I was shocked about. I've never heard of this case. So there was a crash in Magenta, Italy. Apparently it was like a bell shape, but it wasn't a bell-shaped craft. The sides had fell off it. This was recovered by Mussolini in 1933. It was stored until 1939. Now, apparently Hitler was notified or something about this, and Pope Pius wasn't happy, and he notified the US and the UK. Again, just going off my research, I can't 100% verify. But that was in June or July, and then in September the 1st, 1939, the US and the UK World War II started. So it's the same year, 1939. When all this was apparently passed around and stuff like that. So,
and then post
it's interesting
World
when
War
you mentioned
II.
1933, then you've got the Magenta Italy crash, and then you've got the. Again, just my research. Sometimes you got to be confident in your research. I think something's going to be
okay. That's
about
okay.
World War II.
And then you've got Project High Jump as well, right?
What was the first thing they did after World War II? Operation Paperclip took 1,600 Nazi scientists and technicians.
Which links to the documents we sent you yesterday, Scott.
If you look into,
I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. I was mailing.
Matty knows about them.
Sorry, there's something you might be interested in. There was apparently, I think it's called the Black Forest in Germany. I think it was psychics. They found a scroll or something like that. There was a scroll, and it was from this star system and the Aryan race, and that's again where the Aryan ideology came from. The blonde hair, blue eyes, the master race. They wanted to create this master race, and this is where they're saying that Hitler got this idea that we need to create this bloodline and stuff like that. So again, it's just research. I can't verify it. It's just, you got to be confident sometimes that you might be right on stuff. So I'm just tying it in there with you. Maybe you can.
That's really interesting. It's the same year. Where did that craft crash?
Magenta, Italy.
It was in Italy.
And then the Germans apparently got hold of it because of Mussolini. They was in bed together, but I think Pope Pius fell out with Mussolini for something because he was a bit of I can't remember the word he used for him. So he notified the US, and then that's when. So from my research, I just think that something went on for the start of World War II. I think there's
That
a lot
is
more to it that we don't know.
Well,
that
that
is
links into Admiral Byrd as well, though, doesn't it, with the Project High Jump stuff
oh,
that
yeah,
came
yeah,
afterwards?
yeah. Well, that's really interesting.
Don't
So
you think, Matt? I mean, I'm just getting your opinion on that, Matt.
I don't want to give too much conspiracy to it. What I'm trying to say, I'm just on my research. I would not be shocked if we found out something shocking about why World War II started tomorrow. Would not be shocked, and it was to do with the technology and getting all that stuff over, and certain things being found, scrolls and stuff like that. Would not surprise me one little bit.
Hey, Matt, let me ask you a question. I've heard some stories about, the Iraq War was, and Saddam Hussein was attacked, and we went in there because not only was he sitting on tremendous wealth, but
This
some
man can
people
help you
say
with that.
Pardon?
This man can help you with that. He's heard this, and he's been in the
Okay.
army.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
so this
What
links
about
into
what about the Stargate or the portals? Is that true?
yeah, that's at Nineveh, right?
Say again?
So I was sort of waiting until the end because it links into what you're saying about
Well, I
the
can wait
half.
one, but I'm going to ask it again. So I want to hear about this. Does it make more sense to pull it together at the end?
Yeah, the reason I was going to link it because I was coming back to Saddam Hussein and Nineveh and what's there, sort of how it links to the narrative, how it links to disclosure, and sort of I think some of the stuff that you're talking about within these scrolls.
Okay. Well, let's get the scroll out, and then I'm going to come back to you. So don't go anywhere, and keep
I'm still on the
keep
same pub, mate.
drinking. Okay.
I feel like I need
Increasing
something
storm.
stiffer than tea.
Okay, but I need to put a little context on this. So, and Tim was the one that told me this, and so if you want to dig into this more, you can talk to him. But he said in 1934 there was supposed to be a meeting in Europe where all the Templar traditions that were still extant at the time that had important information, whether it was technology or documents or whatever or artifacts, they were supposed to meet, and that meeting was called the Council of Fiducie. But it never happened because shit just got too crazy. And as I told you, I alluded to before, not only was Hitler rounding up Jews, but he was rounding up Freemasons. And the reason for that is because he was trying to get Templars. And the way Freemasonry works, and I know this because it's happened to me, once you become initiated as a brother, then you might be invited into other orders like the Templar Order or the Shriners or whatever. And so the point is this, is that by rounding up all the Masons, you're going to get Templars too. And what Hitler was looking for was what they had. So this all sort of fell apart. I don't know the details of what happened. I'm sure some of the brothers were arrested, tortured, and who knows what he did with them trying to get the information. We know he got some information like the Bell Project, but what happened is a lot of those orders that were in Europe escaped and came over to the United States, and they hid their stuff in remote areas of the United States, like the Adirondack Mountains, hence this. So so that's what's going on in the first part. Now, the second message says Captain Marchand repackages, reburies the scroll, moss covered, I forget the last part, and it says 1953. And then at the bottom, it has CLY Sigla, Clyphus Lucinius Jarbo. That, of course, is a pseudonym. That's not his real name. And then the 23rd with the hooked X, which, of course, I love. But so this is the information about the scroll that we have in that note. But what's interesting is when you turn it on the backside and you flash a black light, we get another message. You remember the movie National Treasure? How they use lemon juice and heat to bring out the message on the back of the Declaration? Well, a black light will do the same thing. It'll bring out the message. And this one says this: Captain Marchand, the same guy mentioned in the previous message, dies. 1973. Exact location of scroll lost to us with a hooked X. And so when I first read that message, I went, shit, should we even bother going after this? But then I thought about it and I go, wait a minute, that's got to be a false flag. That's trying to get us to not go after it. Or let's say the Nazis or some bad actor got a hold of this, and then they see this invisible message on the back. Maybe that would deter them, because it almost deterred me. But I said, screw it. I don't want to be an old fart, not able to go into the woods. So we're going. I think it was a false flag, but that's my opinion. So we went. And what we had to do was rent a float plane to get to this lake that's on this map. There are no roads, there are no houses, no cabins, there's nothing. This is way the hell out there to this day. And so if you look on the northern part of the island, do you see those 4 dots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There are the 2 islands right there. Let's see. Oh, well. Anyway, you see where it says 320 degrees, 138 feet?
Yeah.
See the 138 feet from that far right boulder? Those dots are glacial boulders. They're huge. They're as big as a big recliner, about 4 feet tall. And so the 320 degrees has got to be an azimuth. So when we went there, we started at that boulder. I took out my phone. I plotted 320 degrees, and I paced off 138 feet. We started metal detecting. We got a hit. I started digging. I get down about a foot, and then I pulled out an aluminum vessel for cooking. Garbage, right? Well, the azimuth, if you're off by a degree or two, even only after 138 feet, you could be off by tens of feet. So I just went in an arc and I went up over about 20 feet, metal detected again. We got another hit. This time I dug up a 1950s era Coke can with bullet holes in it. They used it for another miss. Moved over about 30 more feet. Got another hit. Dug down and I pulled out a 10-inch camping nail. Now that's not garbage, but maybe somebody lost it, right? Maybe it was put there on purpose. Metal detected again, got another hit. And then I dug down about 24 inches, almost directly under a stump, and pulled this out. And I nearly shit myself. I'm not kidding you. I'm like, my first thought was, no way. But in my heart,
just for context,
I knew
just for the casual viewer, Scott, can I just say for context that you are the real life Indiana Jones? So I imagine the excitement that you must have felt at that time of finding that, and then to find out what it was must have been crazy.
Yeah. Well, this is a picture one of my colleagues took right as I pulled it out, and I was blown away. But in my heart, I knew this was it. And so this can was used, to help find it. And this top was covered in wax. It was sealed. The whole thing was sealed in wax, so it's waterproof, right?
Wow.
And so I took that nail that I found and I chipped off the wax, and then I opened it. The thing was filled with sand. And then I dumped it into a sample bag, and out came this thing that was wrapped in this.
I assume the sand was to keep it dry.
That's exactly why it was in there. In fact,
won't that stop the glass breaking as well? If you put something in there, it stop the glass pressure and stuff like that as well, I think.
No, I don't think so. This thing is pretty stout. That's why they used it. But
a thick one, yeah.
But the sand, I actually made a thin section, identified the sand. It's feldspar and quartz sand, very fine grain. And angular as hell, not rounded, angular. And that high surface area sucks up moisture. It was used to keep it dry. And when I poured out the sand, literally dust was coming out. It was dry as a bone. So it did the job. Now, the scroll was wrapped in this. This is a designer placemat that we were able to track her down because she signed it down there with her little ladybug logo. And this thing was made between 1950 and 1957. Perfect. And then we unwrapped the scroll. And the other thing I wanted to tell you, there was something else in the jar. 8 of these buttons. Wait, what do you see? A Templar Knight with a shield and a mace. And these are designer buttons that were popular in the late 1800s. And, you know, they would have like, you know, a gaudy garb, and they would have these big buttons with designs on them. And they were popular back at that time. And you can see one of them still had a piece of string attached, but there's 8 of them. Remember, the runestone starts with the number 8? That's not a coincidence. It's a very sacred number. It has to do with the Fibonacci sequence, the goddess. That's a whole nother story. But these things were inside the jar with the scroll because my theory is if this ever corroded away, this was the backup so they could find it with a metal detector. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we unwrapped the designer napkin that was tied with that string. And the first thing we got was this. Now,
would you be able to send Lee the pictures of all these things so we can overlay it on top of the
Yeah, I can do that. Just remind me, Lee, and I'll send the stuff to you.
Yeah,
but the
cheers,
first,
Scott.
this was wrapped around the scroll, and now I've got it between plexiglass, so it's protected and we can handle it, right? But if you look there, that's Italian, and basically what it says is the power of God shines throughout you through other people. I'm paraphrasing, but it's beautiful. And I
do you not find that interesting with the 1933 crash being in Italy?
A strange coincidence, isn't it?
I just think it needs looking into, and I'll send you as much information on that if you want to look into that.
Well, hell yeah, man, let's go.
I'd love you to see if anything cross references, and you think, "Holy shit, there's something here," and you can, go down another rabbit hole there.
And then look what else is in there. Hey, Jan, where's the black light? Can you grab that? I think it's over there.
It's a shame your internet's not a little bit better. It's just not quite picking it up.
We'll overlay it. Everything will overlay it. So what is that we're looking at there? It looks like it's a formula.
Well, it's a formula, and a number of people have sent us their what they think it is, and it has something to do with quantum physics. I think my personal opinion is this might be the key to life in the universe, and it boils down to a mathematical equation. I don't know if I'm right about that, but some people have talked about that.
Well, and Kyle's the best person to speak to about that.
The other thing that's interesting about this, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there's an invisible message on there. See that? Yeah.
Huh.
And that I'm not going to go into right now because it has to do with the islands and where the scroll was hidden. There was another island right next to it, and supposedly in our documents it says the skull of Jesus was hidden there. But
oh my God!
But I digress.
Whoa, anyway, that's a big claim.
Well, we've been there, and it was moved. It's not there anymore. That's another story. Remember, I talked about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to probe too much, but you found that the Earth was disturbed there.
I was going to say that.
Well, I'll be publishing that whole story here in about a month and a half, but they left a calling card. Let's put it that way.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Jesus.
Here's page 1. Here's page 2. Here's page 3. Page 4. Let's see. Page 5. Oops. And then it goes this way. And then this is page 6. And these are the originals. So after we found this and we shit our pants with excitement, we found it fairly quickly. And then we decided we wanted to get out of there and start decoding the messages. And so we had to paddle back to the island where they dropped, we first were dropped off. And then we got reception. We called Tom and he came and picked us up on the float plane. And then we went to the hotel. And for the next 2 straight days, we decoded these messages. And do you want to hear what it says?
Absolutely.
I'll say it for you. Fuck you, Scott. Get going. All right, here we go.
I'd never say that to you. I'd never say that to you.
Yes, you would. I would too.
Oh, fuck you, Scott. Come on, get going.
All right, here we go. Now, there's several parts. And the first part was in Theban script. And that's a 1-to-1 letter substitution. That one was easy. And here's what that said. There were 8 lines. Funny, 8 lines? Imagine that. The 325-year compilation of new and old writings is not the infallible word of God, but the fallible compilation of the Roman Catholic Church to support their doctrine. 325. What happened then? The Council of Nicaea.
Isn't that where they got rid of the Book of Enoch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that didn't make it, did it?
No, it didn't make it. I wonder why.
Funny.
Giants, maybe.
I don't know.
They don't like giants, do they?
Isn't that interesting? It sure sets the table, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just to put context on that for people who are really religious on Christianity here, this meeting of Nicaea, and if you don't know what the Book of Enoch is, we talked about it offline beforehand, but this is part of the oldest Christianity on earth from Ethiopia, and this Council of Nicaea rejected the Book of Enoch from the religion of Christianity, and hence why you've never heard about it. But if you go and look at the Book of Enoch, it talks of wonderful things, giants, angels having babies with the wives of men, and various other things. But that's what he's talking about when you're talking about the Council of Nicaea, just to set the scene for that.
Yep.
If you're wondering what it is.
So clearly the tradition didn't think much of what that compilation ended up being, but that's another discussion. Okay, the next part says this. Translated from the original Aramaic by Brother Simon for the Poor Knights of Christ. The Poor Knights of Christ is what the Templars were called prior to being called the Templars. And I struggled with this. Why the hell did they have the Poor Knights of Christ? 2 thes in a row. Well, you know who figured it out? Don figured it out. And when I called him, I said, Don, what the hell is this? We've got the twice. He said, it's a tell. And then it hit me right away. I'm like, duh. The Poor Knights of Christ is the cipher phrase for the last part of the message, and it's mandatory to decode it. And I did that decoding once I had the cipher phrase, which is the Poor Knights of Christ. So, thank you, Don, for that. The next...
We need to give Don a mention. We'll put his picture, an overlaid picture of Don.
Hell yeah. The next part of the message says, encrypted by Brother Leonidas for the Order of the Grail, 1897. Now, you remember we were talking before about the codes on the Kensington runestone? And we talked about the dating code. There's another code. The first 4 letters that had not the number, but the letters, the runes, that had modifications, either a punch mark or a short stroke. The first 4 letters in sequence as you read the Kensington inscription are G-R-A-L. In medieval Old Swedish, it's Grail, that Grail. And here the Order of the Grail had the scroll. Could this be the same order that carved the runestone and did this work? I think so. Crazy, huh?
Mm.
Yes. Fucking really crazy, yeah. What you've got there, what you were about to obviously expose another message that you're going to decode for us, could potentially be the biggest biggest discovery of mankind.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
And as someone that's researched the UFO and alien topic, gives people like me a massive boner.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've always thought that this was...
Hey, Matt, I got to be honest with you. When we were decoding this, I had wood the whole time. I was
I'm pretty sure.
This is
I'm pretty sure Matty's got an erection right now.
2 inches.
I wouldn't laugh so
sorry,
hard
Janet.
if it wasn't true. My God. Okay.
Cover your ears, Janet. Cover your ears.
So now we're going to get into the meat of the message. And there's 2 parts. And the last part, obviously, they put it at the end to completely blow our minds, but this is pretty mind-blowing too. So I'll just get through this, and then, I mean, if you want to jump in, just jump in. So the first thing that we got was the letters MF. No, not mother, you know what, but we think it's an acronym for my father. And then we get MG, which we think is my God. So MG and MF occur a number of times in this part. Father, Genesis chapter 1. Let us make man in our own image. Genesis chapter 1, +3, 5, 16. Let us make man in our image. In the image of God made he him. To make more, he needed a female, so Eve. They made Cain and Abel. Cain slew Abel, and MF put his mark on him. And then we had 3 letters, IHN, which I think it means in his name, and banished him to Nod, so none there would kill him. But if Adam, Eve, Cain are the only people, who is in Nod? That's a great question. How can you have a city or a town if these are the only... There's a bunch of people there, but they banished them.
Well, I don't know what you think of Billy Carson, Scott, but he talks about the outbreak of mankind, essentially, when the first people were. There was also another species on Earth called the Agigi, or Agigi, however you want to pronounce it, who were also were a race who were brought here, so to speak. This references into the Anunnaki stuff. I don't know if I'm not going to go into it too much, but he talks about the Agigi.
Yeah. And I know Billy Carson. I get along fine with Billy. I think we're going to be having conversations the next time we get together, because all this stuff, we haven't talked about this until about a month ago. We haven't told anyone about this. So they're just learning about it now too.
Connects a lot of dots though, right?
Well, I think it does. Yeah. Well, let me keep reading. I think more dots will be connected. Know this. Then they were not the first people, but the first Jews. Chapter 6, 5, 2. Chapter 6, 5, 2. It has it twice. And the sons of MF saw the daughters of men and found them pleasing in their sight, and came and knew them. Wow. And they settled in the land of Nod, where Cain was sent, so their children enjoyed life for its pleasures, both male, female, male, male, and female, female.
Fucking hell.
That's
shit, man.
So they're saying basically that there was okay with gay people and stuff like that. So
that's the way I interpret it, but hold on.
Yeah.
This does not procreate or honor MF, so he destroyed them all. But flood nor fire succeeded, so he didn't destroy them.
Wow. So what that's confirming there, just for context, what you've just read out is confirming what the Book of Enoch says about giants mating with the wives of man, and this great flood, and another cataclysm in the shape of fire as well. So there's been 2 attempts at wiping out whatever this civilization was
It didn't work.
meddling with, and it didn't work. And that lends credence to things like the Kandahar giant, the Nephilim still being out there in isolated pockets globally, even today. And it's amazing how the system tries to suppress anything regarding giants as well. I mean, that just connects so many dots, what you just read out there. So many.
And it
It's not just
corroborates with the
Nephilim.
Book of Enoch.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah, this is
Like
Book of
massively
Enoch stuff.
corroborates it.
And we're not done, guys.
Well, no, there's more people.
Thus, the sons and daughters of natural man filled the earth, yet nowhere did they mate with the Jew till Lisbeth. So, is that saying that the Jews are aliens?
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
That's the way I interpret it. Maybe that's they call themselves the chosen ones.
It does sound that very much that way. Oh, this is good.
Okay. What?
Just think about this in the background, mate. Just think about what it says.
Elizabeth was, we think, is John the Baptist's mother. So what does that make him? Half alien.
Hybrid. But just to have this in the back of your mind, just while you continue on the Disclosure Day trailer. This is a secret for 7 billion people, even though there's 8 billion people on the planet, which suggests there is an ambiguous 1 billion who are here, who are not just human, but hybrid. So there lends a little bit of credence to that.
This would fit into the Bloodline conspiracy.
You remember when I told you that I was, Holden and I came up with a narrative? That was part of the narrative, that 4%, what he said was 4% of the population in the United States are them. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Do the math.
And this is all from the same scroll. Please keep reading. Jesus Christ. I probably regret saying that by the end of this.
No. Yeah, I do the same thing, man. I say Jesus Christ all the time, and I catch myself.
Just need to go for a quick piss. You not read the last bit yet.
We're gonna mark time for. I'll tell you what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna pause just for 1 minute while Matty goes and relieves his bladder. This is the problem with having a podcast with Matty. He drinks too much whiskey and then he starts going to the toilet. Yeah. He'll be back. His questions usually get very good though. The more he drinks. So where are we at now? 2 hours.
I love that. Let's get after it, man.
This is what happens when you come on a British podcast. Just the booze can't help but flow.
Well, you guys are 6 hours later, so it's oh shit, it's 9 o'clock there, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Still early. It's not even tea time yet.
There you go.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
Oh well, it gets crazier. Trust me.
I'm not excited. I didn't even shake, folks. Let's go.
Right. All right. Are you locked and loaded, boys?
Yeah. Here we go, people. Listen in.
Here we go. Seeing it work in 6 weeks, the angel Anton came and knew my mother.
Anton. Who's Anton?
He's an alien.
So that's I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. It's like, remember, I'm drinking as well.
By the way, who's talking? Jesus.
Yeah.
This is him, first person. So he's half alien too.
You see what I'm saying? This is crazy, isn't it? See, I watched that episode. I couldn't wait to get into this. I still can't believe that you're here, that we can actually talk about this with you. Because there's a lot to put on this.
I'm having a good time. This is awesome. Okay, so, wait, I missed a part. No, I didn't. Seeing it work in 6 weeks, the angel Anton came and knew my mother. But John the Baptist, and I chose MF. I don't know what that means. Then know this. Adam and Eve could read or write, thus the tree of life was not a tree, but a book that spoke. The fruit chapters, numbers 1, 2, 3, etc. So MF looked like man except for intelligence, hence the book to store it all. So I'm not sure what that means. Maybe he's talking about a person. God, I don't know. I really don't know. MF and his wife, Asherah, called wisdom, there's your dualism, male-female, rebuked his brother for having led Eve to open the book and sent him out of earth to Arcturus. But he returns when called, for many follow him here. What of the serpent? Now that's probably an allegory. Natural female mated with my uncle and got the creature with legs that crawled from the waters, and over a long time came to be natural man, strong and large of stature, worshiping its ancestor. A fork in the road became the snake.
Oh shit, man! That's confirming evolution, basically, isn't it? To a point.
Seems to be.
To a point.
Another natural man and woman. So if you follow me, whether you turn right or left, you will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way. Walk in it."
So is he referring to there, if you go right or left, you take the bad path and the good path? Is that what he's referring to there?
He's still going back to the end, yeah. He's talking about divinity,
the satanic
eternity.
side of it then. That
this is the number 8.
Where we go that way.
That's why they've not told us this, isn't it? It's because
it's sideways, it's infinity.
Yeah. And that's what it means. So it doesn't matter whether you take the wrong choice or the right choice, you still go to heaven. You still have eternal life.
Exactly.
You're still in God's love, essentially, his presence. It's about consciousness.
Well, wait a minute.
Oh my God.
What about hell? What about hell?
There is none. There is no hell.
Screw that bullshit.
Unless we're on it.
Yeah. Well, right now it seems like, at least in
Unless
America.
We're there now. Yeah, exactly.
Hell.
Okay. Now,
yeah, that's what it's saying, right? Shit.
Drunk. And then the last
thing. That's the underlying message.
Exactly. So right here, it's in English. It says, "As I am allowed to say." So apparently he had to choose his words carefully. I don't know why, but that's what it says. Okay, so now we're at the end of the message. And this is the part where you guys got to buckle your seatbelts and just get ready, because it's going to get real. Ready?
Gonna get my tissue ready.
It's all right, man. You should have put your Depends on. Here we go. Now, before I do that, remember I told you about the cipher phrase and this horizontal shit right here? There's 22 lines on the front and back of horizontal letters. There's 22 letters in the cipher phrase, the Poor Knights of Christ. 22 is a sacred number. Do you know why?
Yeah. Why do I know why? 22 crops up a lot, doesn't it? Pyramids.
Yes. Do you know how many bones you have in your skull?
Yeah. I think you're going to tell me 22.
8 in your cranium, 14 in your face. Add them up. 22.
Don't ask Mike to do that.
I worked it out quite quickly. I just didn't want to say it. 22.
22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. There's all kinds of 22s. All right.
Yeah.
Here's
you
what
did say in the Y files as well about ribs. We got 33 ribs or something as well.
43 like vertebrae in your spinal column.
That's it. That was it. Yeah.
Yep. And it connects up to what? Right here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I, not entirely human.
Fuck. Straight out of the park.
That's what he said. I, not entirely human. A rupture of the small intestines was not enough to kill me. I slowed my breath and was declared dead. My cousin of my earth father's side had me rest in the family tomb. That's the Talpiot Tomb. If you don't know what it is, look it up. That's where Jesus, Mary Magdalene, their son Judah, and other family members were buried. The Templars went into the tomb at the time of the Crusades, and they took the bones of their ancestors. That is why they had leverage over the church. You know, that physical ascension thing? If you got the bones, that's a problem for the church. You mess with us, we'll mess with you. And all those things are over here now in North America, but I digress. And by the way, the small intestines, if you look at your anatomy, you know where the spear of Longinus went in?
Yeah.
It didn't pierce his lung, it pierced his small intestine, and it goes right up there. Okay. I healed myself, and my wife came and freed me. That would be Mary Magdalene. Was there at the, right? Ascension. We traveled to the north, Scotland, and preached a joint religion of male and female. Boom! Hooked X. My body returned to my cousin's family tomb. Talpiot. My spirit will return at the end of the 6th day, June 6 by the new counting, 2,999 at 6 p.m. So said my father. But beware. 6/6/26 at 6 p.m. You know what's interesting? You know it says 6/6? Those two X's in the encrypted material. Where the hell is it? They're both hooked. Where's the other one? Let me see. There it is, right there. See it?
Your camera's frozen.
Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, both of the X's in the 6 and 6 are hooked X's. Those are the only ones in there. And
so,
just for
do you
fun,
think that's referring to like a false flag, a blue beam, some psyop thing to play out this year? Is that what you think that could reference?
Good question, Matt. Beware. I think our first inclination is something bad, right? But beware sometimes is just saying, hey, just be careful. Slow down, stop, and think about something. So you could make the argument, you could argue it both ways. I mean, my initial reaction is that something not good is going to happen or something that's going to be upsetting, like disclosure, right?
I find it so interesting that date, the 6/6/26, is why would Spielberg pick that specific day to release that movie? Out of all the days,
he didn't, did it? It's not the 6th. I think it's the 12th of June.
I think I read the 12th. I read the 12th.
12th of June. So I think it is.
I think you're right, Matt. Janet's going to look it up.
Yeah, I might be wrong. I hope I am.
It's the 12th of June, so I don't want to just put any misinformation out there. But
double check it. I am wrong.
Double check it.
Because that's just peculiar if it is.
What do you
think?
It's still close. It's still close.
Yeah, it's still close.
Anyway,
but it's 6 days
later.
It is the 12th. Later. She verified it is the 12th.
There we go. It's 6 days before.
All right, we're almost to the end, guys. Do you want me to stop?
No, carry on a sec. Yeah, go for it.
Just kidding.
I'm fucking having a good time here. I'm getting drunk.
Just before we move on, can I link what you said there in that previous passage? So you said he travelled to the north, to Scotland. Yes. Don't you find it interesting that when the Vikings came to the north, the first people they came across were the Druids, who were painted blue. They had runes and all sorts of weird stuff, and they didn't have any fear whatsoever of the Vikings. Right. Do you think that's peculiar, where that ties in, maybe?
No, I don't think that's peculiar at all. I mean, well, I think it's very interesting. But the Isle of Iona has got pervasive legends about Jesus being there with Mary Magdalene and preaching a dual-gendered God religion. And here we actually have another document that is an abbreviated form of this. That's a whole nother story. I don't want to get, but they talk about preached in the Northland and of the Scots. It says Scots. So we think they went to France and then eventually to Scotland, probably, to get away from the Romans because they were probably looking for them. Who knows? Okay. By the way, what's 6 plus 6?
12.
Plus 6 p.m.
18.
18. Plus 2 and 6. One more 6. What's that? 24.
24. Come on, mate. He's had way too many.
Wait a minute.
20... Listen.
24 plus 2 is 26. Divide that by 2.
13.
12.
No, hey, Lee, you're not drinking enough, man. Get going.
I'm just winding Matty up.
All right, here we go. Also, be not fooled by the false prophet, spelled Profit, and his clone, who will
That's so
rise on
funny,
the
man.
third day
Yeah,
after his death.
My God.
Everything
Why
he's
is
saying
clone
is,
even in there? Why would
Yeah.
that have been in the vocabulary at the time?
Well,
is crazy, yeah.
that word didn't really come into play until the late 1800s. So, you know,
No,
this
Jesus is talking about
this has been a
clones.
modern vernacular, right?
So that's just so basically Jesus has said that he's half alien, and he's also mentioned and used a word that didn't exist in the English vocabulary until the 1800s. Did you say clone?
Well, I obviously cloning, if aliens are real, is something they've known about before Jesus's time, right?
Exactly, right. Exactly.
So maybe it was another word, and this is the modern word for it. But I don't know. This is what it said. That's
Crazy
we
shit,
decoded. This is what it said. So rising the third day after his death, and I got to be honest with you. The first time I read this, immediately Trump came to mind as the false prophet. And so
What
does
did you
that
say
mean,
earlier?
is this clone JD Vance? I mean, I don't know. I who knows? Okay,
Well,
I'm
some
gonna
people say anyway. Go on.
I would lean more
I'm just
towards
gonna
I
finish
would
it,
lean more
and then
towards
we're
Rubio.
done. Know this. I got to make sure I got it. Know this. In the beginning was the Word, and that Word was God. There was none before him, and there was none after him. The Word is eternal. And that's it.
Wow, man. Just connects so many dots. So many dots.
It really does, doesn't it?
It's insane.
I'll be honest
It's
with you.
the
I just want to go
timing
for a
and
drink
everything.
with you and Graham Hancock. I just want to go and get all on the piss with you and Graham Hancock. You and Graham Hancock can come round anytime you want. We'll have a drink and just talk.
Wow.
You and him for me, because you're getting the same kind of ridicule as he does for the work that he does.
I've taken plenty of bullets, man, but fuck them. I don't care. I mean, the data's the data. The results are the results. We followed, the documents, and it led us to the scroll. And this is what it says. What do you want from me? It is what it is, and it's subject to interpretation. Everybody is free to interpret it the way they want. I'm free to have my opinion about what it says, and so are you guys. So is Janet. So is everybody.
If it's any consolation, like after 27 years researching the UFO and alien topic, what you've just said makes absolute sense to me, and it doesn't scare me. It doesn't shatter my world or anything like that. It makes absolute sense to me, and I'll speak on behalf of many other people that research this topic. A lot of them think the same way, that Jesus was some form of hybrid alien,
Yeah.
and so it won't be me that'll be shocked at this. It'll be the religious folks.
Do you
I think
know,
it will.
Yeah.
When you're tying everything together, the spiritual aspect and the science aspect of it, I was talking about Greg Braden, and I really like some of his takes on consciousness and what the human body's capable of. And this is part of the stuff that we're talking about with regards to this awakening and this movement into new capabilities and abilities, etc. You mentioned that before with regards to the pineal gland and stuff like that. So this is all so tied in. It just connects so many dots. What you've just read out, basically, it just validates so many people's theories across a spectrum of different subjects, consciousness, UFOs, everything. It connects everything together. I mean, it all comes back to the same answer. It's consciousness and eternal consciousness, essentially.
You said something that was really good and made me think about this first message. The power of God shines around you through other people. I mean, that's a spiritual message, right? And it's a powerful message. But then on the other, right below it, we've got this mathematical formula that, speaks to quantum physics or who knows what, but that's scientific, right? So right from the get-go, we get this juxtaposition of science and spirituality. And it's almost this dualism aspect, again, that's keeping things in balance. And right from the get-go, before we get into the message, we have this dualism again, this balance between science and spirituality. And that just occurred to me just now, based on what you just said, Lee.
Do you know
And,
who ties this all together, Scott? Who the best? And I've just been researching him recently. Who ties this all together perfectly with the combination of spirituality and science is a plasma physicist called Claude Swanson.
okay.
And he ties everything together. He explains everything about what Chris is seeing, about these entities appearing in plasma, because that's the way that they appear to us physically. It connects NDEs, it connects out-of-body experiences, astral projection, remote viewing. It's all the same thing. And he ties everything in. And he talks about this God consciousness in all of us, this light in us all. So if you haven't researched him, I'll go and have a look, because he's a PhD from Princeton, no less.
Okay.
Claude Swanson, plasma physicist. He ties all of this together beautifully. So if you want to look specifically into the spirituality element of it, he's great to go and look at. But you know you've got the backing of science as well with his PhD from Princeton.
And his name is Todd Swanson?
Claude Swanson.
Claude Swanson. Okay. Did you get that, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah, write that down. Okay.
That's without an E. It's Claude without an
Thank
E,
you.
by the way.
No, I know we've took you for 2 hours and 50 minutes. We're going to let you go very soon. I just want to ask you one question. I think it's an important one. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got it here. So, in your opinion, is this more likely to strengthen faith, destroy it, or transform it into something new?
Well,
And
you know
are
what?
you religious, by the way? I didn't ask if you was religious.
Oh, well, I'm not religious, spiritual for sure. I used to call myself an atheist, but I've had too many crazy things happen
Me
in my
too.
life that I can't explain. So, and I've become a Freemason. I'm a Knights Templar, Rosicrucian, and that's helped open me up to things that I wouldn't have considered before. So, but that's who I am. But one of the things that I was really nervous about was releasing this message. I thought there would be a deluge of, Christian fundamentalist types that would say, "Oh, screw you, you're blasphemy," and they would attack me, and I was a little concerned about it. In fact, the people that I was with that found this with me, we talked about this, and they said, "We don't want our names used because we don't want crazies coming after us." But now that it's out, I have to say that I am more than surprised. I am shocked at how overwhelmingly positive the feedback that we have gotten is. I mean, I've had people send me the most profound, beautiful, emotional responses saying, I've always questioned, Christianity that the church has, been preaching, and I've always felt spiritual, and this just resonates with me, and it's amazing. So, to answer your question, there are going to be some people that are fundamentalists that are probably going to lose their minds over this, and that's fine. But I got to tell you, a lot of those people who claim to be fundamentalists deep down aren't as fundamentalists as they want you to believe they are. And so I think this message is going to resonate with them, at least at some level. But I think that the way the world is unfolding right now with disclosure, with the whole extraterrestrial thing that nobody can deny is out there. I mean, I think it forces people to go back and re-examine their faith, and they're going to have to come up with a different narrative. And so I think this just fits right in with that. And I see it as a positive. There's nothing wrong with re-examining your faith, because if you're honest with yourself, there are things, I'm just talking about the Christian faith right now, it just doesn't add up. And if you want to, talk about a leap of faith, a lot of these things are big leaps that sometimes people struggle with. And so I think it's a good thing. I think I've already gotten an overwhelmingly positive response, and I think in the end it's going to be positive. I hope so anyway. And I think it's important, given You know, the times that we're in right now, humanity has got to get its act together. And spirituality is a big part of that, however you do it.
Can I just give you what my opinion as
Yeah,
someone who's just
fire
come
away,
across your
man.
work and stuff like that, and someone that's researched the UFO side of it? What you're saying potentially will bring people who follows the UFO topic and the religious people together. It brings
Dang.
answers to both sides.
So
That is what
science and
you
spirituality
potentially
is
have
the
just
blend, the
released
balance
to us. If it
returns.
proves out to be true, you have brought the UFO community and the religious community together.
Oh, I love that. Hey, let me just leave you with one more thought, okay? You guys are familiar with precession of the equinoxes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you brought up 2012 earlier, Matt, as being one of those moments when people got all wound up. And the reason for that was that the end of the cycle of Pisces was 2012 in the Mayan calendar. Now, there are other precessional calendars that have the transition happening right now in the 2026, 27 time period. But what's happening right now with precession is one of the most profound moments in human history, because it's not just the end of one of the 12, you know, constellations in the zodiac, but it's the end of the 26,000 year long cycle, right? And we are now heading into the age of Aquarius and the beginning of a new cycle. Now, the symbolism of Aquarius is two rivers flowing together, or streams coming together as one. And what you said with the UFO community and with Christian people coming together, I see that, and I've used the same analogy before of the left and the right in our country, right? Republicans and Democrats and people that support Trump and don't support Trump, as coming together as one. So the symbolism of Aquarius and the two streams coming together of diametrically opposed ideologies coming together. Maybe this scroll and eventually the artifacts will be the catalyst to bring these people together that are fighting right now. And that's a losing battle. This bullshit can't continue. We got to just take a break and listen to each other and learn from each other. Because at the end of the day, what I say to people all the time is part of the reason I'm doing this is I know I'm not going to live forever, for fuck's sake. Nobody gets out of this thing alive. I'm doing this because we all grew up, whether you're in England or the United States or anywhere else in the world. This is a beautiful planet. This is a beautiful world. And there are a lot of beautiful people here. And I've had an amazing life. And I want my kids to experience this amazing world, and my grandkids and the ones we'll never meet. That's why I'm doing this shit. And that's why I don't care. If somebody wants to come here and get in my kitchen, let's go. But
I'm the same, mate. I've got 5 kids. I'm exactly the same. I want the truth for me and my family and stuff like that. I do everything for my family.
Me too, for my kids.
Good on you,
one thing I wanted to mention something, Scott, right? And this is something that, because I research a lot of different areas, because I believe that the only way you're going to get to the truth is if you accept different areas like science, spirituality. It's all got to come together for me to get the truth and true answers. And a part of that for me, and this connects to the ancients as well, is that they had knowledge of the stars and things that they shouldn't have had knowledge of. And we ignore that primarily today. And there's a guy I researched Stefan Burns, is a geophysicist, but he studies space weather, and he correlates a lot of the space weather to the seismic activity, volcanic activity here on Earth regarding our sun, the sun's solar activity and the way that it interacts with our magnetosphere and coronal mass ejections, etc. And a lot of the things and crazy shifts that we've seen throughout history, they seem to coincide with celestial events, things happening in the sky, comets, etc.
No question.
No, we're talking about things that are coming up now, and we talk the 4th of April. That's this weekend. That's Saturday. And it just so happens, this is Easter around the same time, and it's a coincidence, if you want to call it that. I don't believe in those anymore after researching what I've researched. But on the 4th, this weekend, the comet MAPS is a sun-grazer comet, and it reaches its perihelion with the sun. And I find that very interesting. because we talk about, you've just mentioned the two rivers flowing together and the synchronicity and the alignment of the planets and Saturn and Uranus and things like that. And this is stuff that the ancients didn't ignore. In fact, they mapped a lot of their world based on this. And you mentioned it with the equinoxes as well and how they play a role. So for me, I think something may happen this week, and I'm just saying it, but I'm talking about a new knowledge, maybe some kind of event, something happening, because that perihelion happens on the 4th. That's this Saturday. Maybe it starts a chain of events, but I'm just going to go on the record and say maybe something will happen. Maybe earthquakes, maybe volcanoes. Maybe it'll play into this narrative of Armageddon and the shit that I was saying about Trump being, you know, I'm just saying, maybe something will start as of this Saturday because of the comet. But you, again, being the modern day Indiana Jones, you know about the ancients and their relationship to the stars and comets and things like that. And is this anything that you've looked at? I'm just going to ask you. I've got to ask you while I've got you. I don't know if I'm going to get you again, Scott. And I know Matt is trying to wrap it up.
Hey, man, we're pals now. We're brothers now.
Well, I've got a plan. I've got a plan. If you're interested, have you got a TikTok account?
Yes, I do.
Right. Send us your TikTok. Would you be willing to do a live stream with us? Get the community up. Random people coming up asking questions on this. We can certainly drive people to your work and stuff like that. There's so many people
that'd be awesome, man.
I'd love to speak to you.
Well, let's chat after this, and we'll work on that. So no, that sounds great, man. It's the networking is important, and I just want as many people as possible to know about this and force them to think and to reflect and all that. So anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah, to answer. Sorry,
Matt,
you're pain in the ass. You didn't talk to me about the comet situation before you interrupted.
No, I know. No. Yes,
we've all got ADHD. It's forgivable.
Okay.
And he's drunk with ADHD.
We have a phrase in Freemasonry. I learned this a long time ago. As above, so below. And there are so many aspects to that you can come up with, but there's a reason why the ancients venerated the heavens, right? And they closely mapped things, and they documented the movements of the stars and the planets and the constellations, because they knew that there were other people up there, and they probably knew that they were interacting with us down here. And at the end of the day, that's what I think that prophetic phrase means, as above, so below. And it has everything to do with extraterrestrials and that interaction and the movement of the heavens and how it impacts us here on Earth and us who are living on Earth. So there's no question that what's happening up there affects us. I mean, look at the moon, for God's sakes. Talk to a sailor with tides and all of that. I mean, that's one example that nobody can deny. But to think that those other heavenly bodies aren't affecting us on this planet, think again. Well, look at the moon and women's menstrual cycles, right? And
tell me the moon's real.
It doesn't affect us as males, right? It certainly does. So
artificial objects.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's another subject, another podcast
on Saturday.
Yeah, I think so. And just because I don't want to forget, we mentioned going full circle on the Library of Nineveh thing in Iraq. So just food for thought, right? So the images, and this ties into Hollywood and the narrative that we've been fed all these years. And this comes into Druids as well. And just reference from what you mentioned on the scroll of where it mentioned Jesus going north to Scotland. And then I talked about the Druids, this very, very spiritual tribe of northern Scotsmen. I wouldn't even consider them Scotsmen, from the mainland, a separate entity entirely, which struck fear of God into the Vikings, the most ruthless warriors that ever existed, or so we've been told. But these people, you know, they had the runes, they had this way about them, but they painted themselves blue, okay? And just come with me on that. Why are they blue? What's the relevance of that? And then you look at Hollywood.
Did the same thing.
Yeah. So stick
And
with
the
that. The
Egyptians. And the
ancients,
Egyptians. Yep.
these ancients that may have had interactions with Yeshua, seem to paint themselves blue. Okay, now look at the library in Iraq at Nineveh. Look at the beings that are on the wall, the blue, these
Yeah.
blue entities that are on the wall, right? And that
Yep.
was the place where, what was it, 3 days after? Or was it even a week afterwards? After they got word of this weapon of mass destruction, not weapons, the weapon of mass destruction, which maybe it could be Gilgamesh, who knows? Let's talk about something else. But this blue beings that were on the wall, right? And then
Yeah.
you look at the Hollywood role, look at Hollywood and what they do and how they desensitize the public. What are the most major movies, like these blockbusters that have been rolled out in the last 15 years? Avatar. Huge
Yeah.
beings,
And they're
blue
blue.
beings, and the
Yeah.
humanoids, and they're incredibly spiritual and in touch with their planet and the tree of life, etc. Look at the way they desensitize the public, right, when we talk about the programming. And then just to tie a bow on that thing, we're talking about the Avatar stuff. Matty, did you hear any?
Yeah, I know your story anyway. You've told me in the past that one.
No. So you got the blue beings on the Nineveh. You've got the ancients that paint themselves blue. And then you've got Hollywood trying to desensitize the public to tall blue spiritual beings. And then you've got the Arcturian narrative that are in those scrolls that suggest that human alien hybrid, and Jesus was one of which. And the Arcturians are blue, if you look at their folklore, right?
Can
Yeah,
I
I do
just interrupt?
apologize. I thought you were speaking about your army thing, where the story of that. I thought that's why I went to the toilet quickly. I thought that was what you were talking about. But yes, I
No,
know
no,
more
I was
about
just
that.
tying all
there,
the blueness together.
I want to interject just real quick. Do you remember when I told you about the angel K that sent CLY to go recover the book of the wars of the Lord?
Yeah.
In that message, it starts off and it says this: I saw the lights again. The right one descended upon my winter lodge, and there stood the likeness of Ammon, Amon. About his eyes shone a light blue. And then he goes on and they start talking through telepathy. And then he gives him the instructions to go get the scroll of the book of the wars of the Lord. The point is a light blue.
Mm. And then
And
blue beam sounds like blue beam.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just saying, and then they use the words blue beam that gets rolled out as this conspiracy narrative as well. Sounds very much like blue beam desensitizing again. PSYOPs, right?
Good point.
PSYOPs that Chase Hughes admits that the CIA operate in. Chase Hughes being the guy who used to teach the CIA how to conduct PSYOP. It's
and
crazy.
The blue book.
It all just connects. Blue book, yeah. It just connects. Yeah. So maybe in this disclosure on whatever's coming and whatever this could be coming over the horizon, expect to be looking out for intelligent blue beings, perhaps. Is that the message? Maybe that's a takeaway, something to ponder over.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Now, what did you see in Iraq?
I didn't go to Iraq. I was in Afghanistan. I went in 2009, 2010. But because it was, you do a lot, you speak to the Americans a lot because you just can't help it. It's such a highly densely populated place of Allied troops. You usually end up chatting away with them anyway. But you hear whispers of stuff, and when you're plugged into the system, still stuck in as a sheep, essentially. You don't pay any lip service to it all because you're completely indoctrinated and, fooled by the system. So you disregard a lot of it. But you hear about guys talking about stuff like giants and it's only when you think, fuck, 16 years, 17 years later, I wish I could have gone back there and questioned the guys who were talking about it. Do you know?
You have the ammo to ask intelligent questions. I got another meeting coming up in 15 minutes. I think it's 15.
We'll wrap it up. We'll wrap
14
it up.
minutes. But I just wanted to ask you, I had heard that there was a portal in Iraq and that the Iraqi military was guarding it. And that was something that we wanted to have access to. Did you hear anything about that?
It's not something I heard about, but I heard, and this is something I've looked at in recent times, There was a company called Black Water back in the day, led by Eric Prince, who's got some dodgy dealings of his own. He's linked to Hollywood as well, by the way, if you want to look into this guy. And he owned Blackwater, and Blackwater were a contractor company, right?
Blackwater,
Private military
yeah.
Yeah, private military contractor. And these people, obviously, these are the best of the best troops who've left the service that get mopped up by the security industry. That's just how it works. It's called the circuit. But obviously, some of these companies who we're talking about with the UFO subject, Lockheed, Raytheon, etc., they have these black op projects, these, where they're working on this reverse engineered tech, and the hit squads essentially that they wheel out to suppress the information and silence people are these teams of ex-special forces people hired via proxy companies called, i.e. Blackwater. Now, when Iraq kicked off, there was an advance party that went in ahead of the main invasion force from Blackwater, which is fucking peculiar because I'm a military guy. I know that military go in first, they create the infrastructure, and then private contractors come in and get about their business. Private contractors don't go in first, and there's a reason for that. They haven't got any mutual support. So when a military unit goes in, it does so under the guise that it's got mutual support. If it needs air cover, it gets air cover, or artillery, etc.
Right.
These private contractors, they're their own entity. They don't get the mutual support of the government. When they go out on the ground, they go out under the guise that they're on the fucking own. So when they go out, they don't go out looking for gunfights. In fact, the fucking opposite. That is the very last thing that they want to be doing. They want to be getting out, getting on mission, getting on task, getting back, unscathed, unseen. Now, in Iraq, there was and this is in 2006, 7, I believe. You'd have to look into it. Matty maybe could look at it in the background. It's probably on the internet, quite easily accessible. But there was a gunfight where there was a fuckload of these contractors, and they discovered something. I think, where was it now? It might have been I don't think it was the palace, but they found something anyway. It might have been a museum even. And they got on site.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And there was a fucking massacre. So these guys, these contractors, had just gone to work on whoever was guarding this property, and they got rid of everybody. They wiped them out. They killed everybody. It was a massacre, and there was a scandal about it, but it was quickly swept up and covered up. It wasn't what it was. Yeah. And basically, that was the Blackwater fucking hit squads going in and retrieving some shit. And taking something or taking custody of something. So whatever was there, it has to have been something very, very, very interesting. Because contractors, they go out in maybe 2 vehicles, so an 8-man team, maybe, unless there's a big job. They don't go out in big groups and convoys because they haven't got that support, and they stick out like a sore thumb. So anybody who knows that they're up to no good and they're potentially enemy, they're on hostile ground. So you wouldn't do that. So the fact that there was an advance party of Blackwater fucking contractors without any mutual support on their own, and they just happened to cause a massacre that was quickly swept away and under the rug, it ties into they were doing something. And then you look at, the Smithsonian and how they took custody of like the Kandahar giants, supposedly, and other things as well.
Oh, yeah.
That disappear into the ether. And you think, well, yeah, it makes sense because there is this cloak of suppression, and this whoever these people are who operate behind the veil, they've got their hands into this, and they're involved. Do you know what I mean? And they operate using these ex-special forces teams of hit squad.
Oh, well, hey guys, I just got the notice that I'm going on in 5 minutes. I got a podcast, so I want to keep this going. Let's do it again.
Thank you. So can we get you? Can you send him the pictures of everything you want us to put into the video, and can you send us your TikTok link? And also, I want to interject just quickly with Blackwater for people in the UK. I don't know about around the world, but if you go to your work-based pension and look where the majority of your pension is invested, it's in Blackwater. And please drop a comment on Across the Pond podcast if you've checked your pension and look where your pension is being invested.
Interesting.
There you go.
And with that, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Scott, thanks for joining us as a guest. No, 100% we're going to speak again in the future. And as well, Matty, thanks for coming on and co-hosting. It's been a pleasure to have you. And we'll end it there. Scott, if you just stay on for a second, just 1 second after we finish, just so it downloads the audio. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you, and good to meet you, Matt. We'll do it again.
Thank you, man. I love you. My guy.
Figure this one out. There's a double. There's a third one. What do we got? Take a look at this.
Kenneth Arnold, lights flashing, 47 saucers passing, Roswell crash, Debris field, Ramey memo half revealed, Project Sign, Project Grudge, Cold War skies, the radar buzz, Blue Book files locked away, Men in Black say no one saw a thing today.
Watch closely as a different U.S. drone drops a Hellfire missile on that fast-moving ore. The missile appearing to bounce off the object.